All right, good morning. What's going on, everybody? I mean, this is obviously very horrible news for Fury Usyk's postponed, as everyone knows. And I mean, it goes without saying how excited everyone was for this fight. I was extremely excited for this fight. I had an app downloaded on my phone that actually was counting down the days to February 17th. So I'm just as gutted, if not more than everyone else, right? And I know people are upset, people are angry, right? And a lot of this anger is being directed towards Fury. And I get it. Fury hasn't always been the most likable guy and isn't really the most likable guy in the sport of boxing. He's said and done a lot of things that have rubbed people the wrong way. I get it. I'm not here to do PR for Fury. I'm not here to change anybody's mind, right? If you want to believe something nefarious went on, just like with Glovegate, right? I wasn't going to go out of my way to try and change the Glovegate people's minds because they were, I believe, reacting off of emotion, just like I believe a lot of other people, most people here are acting off of emotion and they're not 100% being rational in their opinion and their assessment of the situation, right? Chris Andre Boxing and D Style Boxing did excellent videos yesterday explaining why they don't believe anything nefarious went on, and they don't believe Fury Fury bladed himself, cut himself, right? They don't believe it, and they explained why. And I'm gonna probably repeat a lot of those things that they had mentioned as well. Um, you know, if you look at it, this has happened before in the past. Mike Tyson suffered a cut in preparation for his fight with Alex Stewart. Just because you have the headgear on, the brow area of the eyes and the eyes themselves are not fully protected, right? And an elbow can get in there, which it has done in that instance. David Hayes suffered a cut in preparation for Fury, and you can go back as far as George Foreman suffering a cut before his fight with Ali in the Rumble in the Jungle, and which required 11 stitches. And that fight was postponed and ended up happening 5 weeks later. And each each time, when this does happen, the other fighter who's not injured, right? And the reaction is going to be they're going to be upset, just like when it happened with Foreman. Ali was saying, "I want all the helicopters, I want all the private planes and the boats guarded until this fight happens, so George Foreman cannot leave." Right? He was upset. Fury was upset when it happened to Hay, and he questioned the validity of it. So again, I understand the non-injured fighter is going to react that way, but that still doesn't affect my opinion, right? People are saying, "Oh well, Fury reacted the same way to Hay, accused him of faking it." Okay, well, I didn't believe it back then, and I don't believe it right now. Well, Fury's pulled out of fights before. Okay, what does that have to do with this fight? The reasons for pulling out of the Ustinov fight. I mean, his trainer's brother was in intensive care, and ultimately passed away, and Ustinov was a late replacement. Okay, I mean, if you're mad that he didn't go through with that fight, you think he should have gone through with that fight. I'm not here to change your opinion. I think that was a legitimate excuse. Um, the situation with Klitschko, I was really pissed off that rematch didn't happen. But again, he was under investigation by UCAD. He was probably ultimately going to be suspended anyways because of the doping allegations. I do believe he doped. I don't believe the boar meat story. Um, and coincidentally, ironically enough, when he came back, he got a post-dated ban served. right? Usyk did that. It was so conveniently that he came back long enough for them to, you know, give him that post-dated ban and saying he's all set and he can be licensed to fight. And we saw what happened there, right? So again, we're comparing apples to oranges here. Has Fury been inconsistent? Yeah. Has Fury let us down? Yeah. But that still doesn't mean that I believe that he took a razor and cut that same eye that was injured in the Otto Wallen fight. He went and cut that same scar tissue area with a blade intentionally so he can get out of this fight. I do believe he was motivated for this fight. I do believe he trained hard for this fight. I do believe, looking at the pictures, he was in the best shape he's been in recent years. And I just don't think that he intentionally tried to get out of this fight, not with all this money on the line, right? And I know people are going to disagree, and I'm not going to be here trying to change your mind. All I can do is give you my opinion, and I'm not here to take shots at anybody. I'm not here to gaslight anyone. I know a lot of people want to gaslight us, but it's just like the situation with the Glovegate people. And I know Chris Andrade and I know D-Style already mentioned this. Because he tested positive for steroids, he's a cheater, so automatically he loaded his gloves. Okay, so because he pulled out of a fight with Vladimir Klitschko 9 years ago, that means he bladed himself. I mean, the two things don't match up to me. That's just my opinion. Does Fury have a great character? Is he a great human being? I mean, is he been good for boxing? Is it hard being a Fury fan? Absolutely. With all that stuff being said, that still doesn't mean that I think he took a razor and intentionally cut his eye. That's just my position on it. And if I'm a fanboy because I say that, right? And if I'm a PR person because I say that, then so be it. And before I go to John, I just want to mention one thing. This has been my position in the heavyweight division. And I know Anthony Joshua gets a lot of slack, but one thing I have to give him credit for, he's been the most consistent out of all of the heavyweights, right? Tyson Fury, Deontay Wilder, and even Usyk. Since Usyk has moved up to heavyweight, right? Since he's moved up to heavyweight, if you look at the history, he fought Chaz Witherspoon in October of 2019, right? And he didn't fight again until a year later against Derek Chisora in October of 2020. Okay? And then 11 months later, right, he fights Anthony Joshua for the world heavyweight title. And after winning that title, that rematch doesn't happen until 11 months later. And then after that, it took him another year to fight Daniel Dubois. Now, in that instance, I do believe that was unfortunate because I think they were trying to put that Fury fight together. And that time that elapsed in that period was because they were trying to negotiate the Fury fight. So again, no disrespect to Usyk, but we have to look at facts here. Since moving up to heavyweight, this guy has fought once a year, and the time frame in between these fights were 11 to 12 months. So again, he hasn't been the most consistent guy in the world at heavyweight either. None of these guys have Wilder, Fury, or Usyk, right? But Joshua has. I'll give Joshua credit for that. He's fought every mandatory. He's been the most active out of all of them, right? So I'm not going to take that away. But this notion that like Fury's the only guy that hasn't really been active, right? And Usyk has, like they've both been inactive, and they both haven't fought often, at heavyweight. Now the cruiserweight situation is a different story. So that's all my position. That's my position. The big thing here is Usyk does do better than Fury when it comes to inactivity. He doesn't get depressed. He doesn't get have these mood swings and these emotional swings, right? That doesn't happen with Usyk. So the big question is, will Fury still fight Usyk, and should Usyk wait around for him? Because Usyk's 37, he doesn't have much time left on the clock. Neither of these guys have much time left on the clock. Both men have spoke of retirement. Should Usyk have to wait around for Fury, and will he wait around for Fury? And the other big question is, will this affect Fury psychologically? Will he go into a depressive downfall here, right? And will he go off the rails because of the inactivity? And will he be the worse for wear? Because as I said before, I think Usyk handles inactivity better than Fury. I think he's more disciplined in his conditioning, and Fury is not. So who knows if Fury's going to get depressed, blow up here? Can Fury just say to himself, "Fuck it, I'm the victim of bad luck here. I'm just going to scrap it and I'm going to retire." Because I'm not taking retirement off the table. I'm not taking the fact that Fury could still walk away from this, because again, I just don't think he's um I don't think he's more his mentally focused as Usyk is when he doesn't have a fight signed. I think it's very easy for him to go off the rails, and I don't envision Usyk having that same problem. John, I'm going to give you the floor. I'd like to hear your opinion on all this.
Well, there's a couple of things. I'm not going to call you a fanboy. That's the first thing. However, I am going to remind you, when you invited me onto the stream, when people were complaining about the Ngannou fight, and they'd announced the signing of Usyk Fury for the 23rd of December, you did actually say before I came on the stream that I was one of the biggest AJ fanboys out there. So I'm just going to pull your card about that, because I get a lot of stick for being an AJ fanboy, which I don't think I am, personally. I like him, but the reasons that I like him is because he's a diligent hard worker. That's the main reason for liking him. As for whether this is a fake cut or an intentional pullout, we're never going to know for definite. So I think you mentioned Chris Andre's post that he's put out there about the arguments for it to not be a fake argument, and he went through all of his other pullouts, or attempted to go through. I think he forgot about the COVID one that happened, where Joe Parker was seen with Fury when Fury was supposed to have COVID. That was a bit suspicious, but overall he went through it all. The issue that I've got is it's not conclusively not fake either for me personally, but we don't know. But what we do know is the fight isn't going to happen, and there's a whole heap of issues that are going to happen in the IBF mandatory. What's going to happen with that? There's a lot of problems around that. They've obviously been postponing it for quite a while, and it's due. I think there is an argument that Fury would do something like this. I think there's credence in that argument, because we don't have these discussions about lots of other fighters. There aren't many other, like I said to you, when I didn't think the fight was going to happen in December, that Fury has a track record of pulling out of fights that side more than anybody else. So if this is all genuine, and this is a genuine accident, freak accident, he was in the best shape of his life, and he was all set for fighting Usyk. The reason that people have got their doubts is because of his track record. So those doubts are at least legitimate doubts, in that he has a track record of doing this. But we don't really know if it. And as for the blading argument, it's not the only possibility. So I remember quite credible sources, or YouTube platforms at least, coming out when he announced the injury against Vlad and postponing the rematch, that a lot of people didn't believe the injury footage that we saw there, which was again a photo. People were suggesting it was makeup. People didn't believe that. And other fighters have had issues. One of the ones that you didn't mention was the Ali Liston rematch, where Ali ruptured his intestine and they had to postpone that rematch. And Liston, there's an argument that Liston was in the best shape of his life, ready for that rematch, and he was too old to get into that shape again. Whether there's any credence in that argument, I don't know. I mean, there's loads, the whole thing. Whenever we get into conspiracy theories, you can't prove anything. That's what enables the conspiracy theory to come along. But the amount of anger I've seen at Fury, I don't think it's all just based on nothing. I think he could have photoshopped that cut. I wouldn't rule that out yet. I don't know how much scrutiny goes on in Saudi Arabia to see how injured he is. The only person that I'm aware of who's kind of said how bad the injury is his own cut man, not an independent doctor. Doesn't mean to say he hasn't been cut. I'm just saying we haven't had that independent verification. In the sparring footage, there's no actual blood. There's no blood on the gloves. We don't see the cut. He doesn't take it off. They don't rush over. They don't go into it. It just cuts off where he says he's been cut. So it could all be genuine. But when we just come down to unrefutable proof, I haven't actually seen yet, and maybe it'll happen in a couple of days or later on today or whenever, irrefutable proof that he's genuinely cut. I don't know how much scrutiny goes over that. I mean, you'd assume there would be a lot of scrutiny over the actual cut on the basis of the amount of money they've just spent on the promo. But I'm just saying I don't know because I haven't seen the evidence. And then as for blading and stuff like that, I've seen the argument against blading. I get the argument against blading because it's long-term damage. But it all depends what his intentions are. Because when the accusations against David Haye came out about blading, he then stayed out of the ring for 3 years. So the damage that you do to yourself in those circumstances does actually have a much better chance of healing. It does seem far-fetched that you'd blade yourself just to not lose a fight. But I can understand why people are so suspicious. So my real stance on this is we don't know, we can't know for definite. But I can understand why people do not trust what Tyson Fury says. And out of all the active fighters out there, he's the one who's got a track record of doing this sort of thing. Whether it's all been genuine or not in the past, he still has a record. People were putting out polls months ago suggesting this fight wouldn't happen. No, I don't see that for other fights. I don't see other big fights, people putting out polls, do you think it will actually happen? We don't see that. So to just dismiss everybody's suspicion at the same time is as unfair as saying, we know that Tyson Fury has faked his injury, he's a liar. That's also unfair, if that makes sense. I think we don't know. All we do know is the fight's not happening. That's the only thing we know. For me, it's the only thing I know for certain, because Tyson Fury has lied on multiple occasions about multiple things in the past.
I go back to this, though, and I'm going to use a phrase that D-Style Boxing used, Occam's razor. I don't know if you're familiar with that principle.
Yes, I am. Yes, I am.
And usually the most logical or the easiest assumption to make is usually the true, the correct one. So when you go back to the Vlad situation, right? And you look at why he pulled out of that fight, why that fight didn't happen. You can debate the injury all you want. Vlad had a similar injury, and that fight was postponed, and it ended up happening. Whether you believe that injury is legit or not, what you can't refute is tested positive for nandrolone. I don't believe his boar meat excuse, right? I don't believe the depression. I'm sure he wasn't happy with what was going on at that situation, right? But the one big thing that stood out to me in that whole situation was the UCAD investigation and ultimately the suspension that was going to follow, right? And then when he comes back, conveniently that suspension is post dated served, and he gets a license. So that's the most logical explanation why he retired so conveniently for that amount of time, just enough for that ban to be post dated so he can come back, right? That's an easy explanation, in my opinion. You can disagree or agree. So that's why
I
I think
completely
that's
agree with that.
okay. So you agree with that, right? That's a
Yeah, I
simple. That's a
100%
simple. That's a
agree with
simple
that.
assessment, right,
Mm.
John? That's fair, right?
Yeah.
That's logical, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I'm saying that without Fury pom poms in my hand. I am the biggest Fury fan of all
But it's
time.
all right. We all have people we like. There's nothing
No,
wrong
I
with that.
understand that. I
We need
understand
to
that.
have people we like. That's
I
cool.
understand that. I am biased, but I can be objective. I thought he lost the Ngannou fight. I thought that was a fight that could have gone either way. I edged it to Ngannou by a point. I'm just being honest. I could see Fury getting the decision, and I could see Ngannou getting the decision. So I'm being honest. So we have more than likely we have a simple explanation for why that didn't happen. Now the Ustinov situation.
Oh, hold on. There's a couple of points before you just move on from what you've said.
Okay, go ahead.
Yeah, what you haven't covered, yeah, is I think the explanation you've given is the most plausible explanation. But we didn't really know that explanation until time passed. We
Of
needed
course,
all the
because
facts.
Fury was lying. Fury was
Yes,
lying. I do
we,
believe Fury was lying.
we needed all the facts to come out,
Yeah.
so we didn't know at the
Yeah.
time what
I
the
agree
truth
with
was.
that. I suspected
Which
it right away, John. But as you said, I couldn't confirm it in my own mind until everything. We had to see UCAD give him
well, I
have
actually had inside information that he was going to pop a week before he popped.
well, regardless.
So anyway, so that's irrelevant because he did pop, and we know he popped, and he's essentially he got banned for 2 years for it.
I mean,
But he managed the situation very well, so that he's been able to kind of pull a con job where people forget about that.
yeah, but
No, but that's not my point. That isn't my point. The point is
okay.
we didn't have all the information at the time, like the day after he pulled out of that fight. And what people were very suspicious about was that he was lying about an injury. And I think he was lying about that injury. And from pretty much what you've said there, you're not necessarily convinced about the injury.
Everything was designed to cover up the UCAD
Yes.
situation.
Yeah, exactly.
I agree with that wholeheartedly.
Exactly. So the
I'm not
point is,
denying that.
the
I'm not
2 points,
denying that, John.
the 2 points I'm making are, first of all, it's too soon for us to actually know what's
Yeah.
happened in this case. That's the one point, and it took time in that instance to actually find out.
Okay.
And the other point is, he has lied about an injury in the past, based on what you've just said as well.
Okay.
So before we move on to the next one, which is fine, I just wanted to highlight that as well. To be fair,
I understand that.
That's
and
it.
I understand,
That's it.
but
Doesn't mean you're wrong. It doesn't mean you're wrong.
no.
But those things do need to be
But-
considered
but
when we talk about this.
but John, being a liar, right, doesn't mean you're still gonna cut your eye, and it doesn't
No,
mean
it
you're
doesn't.
gonna it doesn't mean you're gonna put egg weights in your gloves, because
No,
a
it
lot of
doesn't.
the Glovegate people were saying, oh, well, because he took steroids in the past, that means he's a cheater, and why wouldn't he load his gloves? That's like saying because you go into a store and steal a Snickers bar, that means you're going to go try and go to a car dealership and steal cars. I mean, one thing is
But I
not the same
don't
as the
think
other.
that proves that he's not cut. What I've said to you is they are still factors that shouldn't be completely ignored.
But John,
So no, but my position on this is this could all be genuine.
yeah.
It
Let me
could
ask you this,
be.
John. If you were to put a percentage on it, what percentage do you think it's genuine, and what percentage do you think it's
I'm
not?
about 50-50.
Yeah, see, I don't.
No,
care.
no, I think that's fair based on a couple of things. First of all, if you were asked about the injury to his calf, which is where it was, the day after,
I think it was his ankle, wasn't it?
like the bruise picture went all the way up his calf. I think he was claiming
Yeah,
on his Achilles, and if you tore your
yeah,
Achilles, you would get a bruise all over your calf.
yeah.
So that was the picture, yeah, of his calf that we saw. If you were asked the day after he pulled out of that fight, do you think the injury is genuine? And you'd have been 50-50 on it.
I would have been 100%.
No, I'm just saying.
No, I would have been 100% zero that it was
No,
legitimate.
but if you'd have been 50-50 on it at the time,
Yeah,
the day after,
yeah.
then that would have been a fair place to
But
be,
John,
because he's
but John,
done things in the past. So I'm not saying he's lying though.
but John, I understand what you're saying, right? But the problem here is that was used as an excuse. And fighters claim injury all the time, and they try to put information out there. And this isn't the first time fighters would say they're injured when they're not. And again, well, why are you trying to justify? I'm not trying to justify it. What I am trying to say is when you look at that situation, everything was designed to cover up that UCAD investigation and try to put a happy face on that. Everything was designed in that instance to distract and take away
there was one other
from
thing
from that UCAD situation. In my opinion.
There's one other thing that you've forgotten about that he actually did to distract us from that, because before the mental health things came out, he also failed the test for cocaine as well.
Yeah,
and that was in very close succession, and that also muddied the water.
Which is a result.
Well.
Yeah, the
cocaine
cocaine use is a result.
So really, what I'm saying is, we will find out probably, most likely, if this is all genuine. But at the moment, the day after, when we're talking about Tyson Fury, I don't think it's unreasonable for people to have doubts and to be 50-50. I think we probably will find out. I mean, we might get a doctor's report.
Yeah.
And some better footage of the cut and all the rest of it in the next day or so. We don't know what's going to happen.
But John, would you agree, when you look at that situation, the simplest explanation and the most logical explanation was he was trying to distract from the UCAD investigation, which he would ultimately get suspended for. Would that be a fair assessment?
Right. It's two things. Yes,
right?
In answer to your question. But
okay.
Before you move on, we weren't in a position to find that most logical answer the day after, because we didn't know about the Nandrolone case.
Yeah.
So what I'm saying to you is, the day after this cut, when people have got legitimate doubts about it, it's reasonable to have legitimate doubts.
Yeah.
Because we haven't got the full picture yet, as in the case that you're giving me the example of. And B, we've got a guy who's got a track record of A, pulling out of fights, and B, being dodgy.
Well, I will say, and maybe you can disagree with this or not. When I first found out that he pulled out of the Klitschko fight, I put two and two together in my mind. That was the assessment I came up with, right? That's what I felt. I
don't think we knew about the Nandrolone situation at that point.
Say again?
I don't think the information about the Nandrolone failed test.
The Nandrolone came out way before, even before the press conferences started for the second fight.
Are you sure?
I believe so. Yes, I remember that.
I mean, my memory isn't perfect on it.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'd have to go back and verify.
Yeah. And the reason why people were all over the place, John, is because he kept putting out all this other information to distract away from that. But the most, in my opinion, again, this is opinion, and I think history has ultimately proved me right. And you can say hindsight is 20/20. I respect all that, right? I get it. But that's the most logical explanation. There was a reason to fake an injury there to distract from the real problem, which was the failed drug test. Okay? But there's not a reason, unless you believe Tyson Fury is afraid of Usyk and he never really wanted to fight. If you're in that camp, then I can't change your mind on that. I find it hard to believe in the way he prepared and the shape he looked like he was in and the money on the table. I just think there was so much money invested in this that at this point he's not going to try to get out of it with two weeks left to go. I'm just going to address this comment briefly from Papoose. Even though you cast conspiracy theories aside, why is he always pulling out of fights which ends up benefiting him? To be fair, I don't understand how this benefits him losing tens of millions of dollars. I don't understand how this benefits him. I mean, I don't think this benefits him. Now, you can agree or disagree with that. All right, so that's the most logical explanation I think we can agree on, and you can make the argument, okay, hindsight is 2020. That's all fair. But that's the most logical explanation we can come to with him pulling out of the Vlad fight.
I'm not going to dispute that in the slightest because it's my opinion.
Okay. Let's move on.
I've actually put this opinion forward on YouTube about his mental health on more than one occasion.
Yeah.
I don't believe the mental health problem.
Yeah.
And I think it was a smokescreen. I've also put forward on YouTube on more than one occasion that the failed cocaine test was also a smokescreen to hide the
100%.
And it worked.
100%.
And it works because when you talk to a lot of people now, they just do not have. It's like group amnesia that Tyson is a convicted head cheat, and
100%.
Potentially, the Vlad fight should be a no contest. I mean, there's an argument.
I agree. There's an argument. There's an argument
for it. So I can't disagree with my own opinion.
I understand that. And again,
John, I'm actually checking the dates while you're talking to see when we found out about the failed test and when the pullout was announced.
And if I'm wrong, John,
I know you will. I know.
You know I will, right? You know I'm a reason. I think we can agree upon one thing. I'm a reasonable individual, right?
I've not accused you of anything other than
I'm not being defensive.
The only thing I've pulled your card about, Joe, is you calling me an AJ fan.
All right, you know what? I'm gonna retract that. I'll retract that right here.
It's all right. It's not a big deal.
I'll retract it. I'll retract it. That was an emotional response, and it was it could be.
It's not that deep anyway. I mean, like
it could be construed. It could be construed as an ad hominem, and I'll retract it.
But it's not that big a deal.
Right.
But I'm just saying, Joe.
All right.
I'm not worried about any of that.
I know you're not. I know you're not. But you can point to it as being hip. You can point to it as me being a hypocrite, and I do have
Well, who isn't? Right.
I do have hypocritical tendencies. I'm a flawed human being.
Well, we all are. So I'm checking the dates because I can't remember. So I want to know for myself.
Okay.
So move on to the Ustinov one because I've said what I wanted to say about them.
Yeah, let's move on to the Ustinov one. Now, I do believe, honestly, that was a legitimate pull. That Ustinov was a late replacement for Chisora because Chisora pulled out with a hand injury, right? And his trainer's brother dying, and his trainer not wanting to train him because of the situation. Can we argue that that's a legitimate reason to not go through with the fight because of his uncle being in intensive care and then ultimately passing away as a result of it? Is that not a legitimate pullout? Can we accept that, John?
Right. There could all be legitimate pullouts. Right?
I mean, John, the guy was really sick though. He did pass away.
Huey Fury, the older Huey Fury, Tyson's uncle died. Right. It really happened. Yeah. So he genuinely was ill.
So are you mad about that pullout? Is that?
I'm not mad about any of them.
Is that an acceptable pullout?
No.
It's not an acceptable pullout. That your trainer's brother died.
I'll explain why.
Okay, explain why that's not a legitimate pullout. Because once again, that's another simple explanation, and I'm going to tie this all in. I'm going to tie this all in at the end.
I'll give you the reason. I don't think it was as sudden as it was made out to be. I think they actually knew about it when he agreed to do the fight. So the fact that he's agreed to do it, and then he uses it as a reason to pull out. Again, right? I'm on the fence with all of this.
Okay.
In that it could be a reasonable pullout. Yeah, because he might have taken a turn for the worse.
Can I ask you a question? Hypothetically?
Let me just finish the sentence. Yeah, because you asked. Right.
Okay.
So he could have taken a turn for the worse. So even though he knew that he was ill, he might have got information that actually this guy's gonna he's gonna die soon, and that might have been new
That's
information.
what I'm saying, John.
Oh,
The information could have gotten worse as
yeah,
time went
but
on.
we're using the words "could," yeah.
But
So
John, he
that
passed
then
away.
opens the
He
door.
ultimately passed away, John. So
No, but
it was bad.
but Joe, that then opens the door for the counter argument, which I am giving.
Okay.
Like, if there's a counter argument that's legitimate, that basically means it's 50-50, which is the point. That nobody's
all right,
correct.
I'm going to respectfully disagree with that.
Well, I'm going to give the counter argument.
Okay.
Yeah?
Wow.
And you don't have to agree with the counter argument.
All right.
I've just said that you could be right, but we're using the word could. Yeah. So he knew that he wasn't well when he signed to take the fight. And also, people have gone into the ring when their parents have died, like close to, and used it as motivation. So I'm not saying that it wasn't a legitimate reason, but it's not a cast iron. It's not as cast iron as it's being presented.
So history has shown us that people have been in that situation. History has shown us that people have been in that situation and still have gone through it fights. That's a fact. We'll agree with that.
And
yeah.
also,
we'll agree with that.
He did actually know about it when he agreed to have the fight as well. So based on that, that undermines his position. So those are the two counter arguments.
Okay.
And I'm open to the idea that he did know about it before he signed the fight.
And it got progressively worse.
And it got progressively worse. To pull out. But what I'm saying to you is it's not conclusive. Yeah? It's not as cast iron as it just being that black and white. I don't think it is as black and white as that.
But John, was his uncle, right when that fight was agreed upon, right? You have to look at it this way. Was his uncle already hospitalized in critical condition?
I'll double check that as well.
That's because that was
how late a replacement was Ustinov. Because he agreed to fight Ustinov.
He was a 2-week late replacement. John.
Exactly. So I think he replaced Derek, didn't he? Derek broke his hand or something.
Yeah. But John,
so I'm not saying that the agreeing to fight Derek part, he knew he was ill. I'm saying 2 weeks before the fight, I'm pretty certain he did actually know he was ill. Now, I'm open to the idea that he found out he'd taken the turn for worse, they couldn't carry on, and they needed to stop the fight legitimately. Yeah? But I think that could well have been what happened. However,
are you 50-50 on that one too, John?
Yeah, I am. Because
okay, I mean,
I'll give you the. I've got the money. I'll give you the counter argument.
Okay.
As well.
Okay.
Yeah? So he actually had a meltdown in the press conference that he was being fitted up. Do you remember that press conference?
To be fair, John, I don't remember the press conference.
Right, okay.
Can you refresh my memory?
Yeah. So basically, he had a bit of a meltdown that this was a conspiracy to make him lose. And that it was that Derek hadn't really hurt his hand, that this late replacement had been foisted on him, and it was a conspiracy against Tyson Fury. Very much in a way, he kind of had a meltdown with David Hay
David Hay, like Ali had a meltdown with Foreman when Foreman got injured.
No, I know.
It's common. It's common to do that, though, isn't it, John? Like I'm not justifying it, but
so
every time someone gets injured,
normally what happens, when someone is a late replacement, they get pissed off with the person that pulls out.
Exactly.
But they don't then make claims that this is a conspiracy to make you lose. Whilst actually agreeing to have the late replacement. Like, it would have been better if you'd have just said, Derek's broken his hand, I'm not doing a 2-week late replacement. Yeah.
But most fighters in that situation, John, do react negatively. I'm not saying it's right or wrong, but they do that.
No, but they don't claim it's a conspiracy and then pull out.
Well, Ali was telling the government in Zaire to guard the boats, the planes, and the helicopters, so George Foreman couldn't leave.
I know. I mean, what I'm saying to you is they don't normally claim that the late replacement is a conspiracy
Oh,
to
okay.
make them lose a fight, and
Okay.
then they pull out of the late replacement. So not only did he claim it was a conspiracy against him, he actually ended up pulling out of the fight.
But didn't Joshua's
So as an
did
example, other people who've taken late replacements would normally go through with them and slag off the fighter who they had to.
yeah.
Yeah,
But
that's
didn't
normally what happens.
but didn't Joshua's father get irate with Eddie Hearn about that Ruiz fight because of
Right,
him
yeah,
being,
but that's not what I'm saying.
you
So
know?
what I'm saying is normally when people maybe they shouldn't take the late replacement.
Yeah, I don't agree with late
No,
replacements. I'm
okay,
not a big fan.
okay,
I'm not a big
that's
fan of
one
them.
thing. That's one thing. But
Yeah.
Tyson agreed to take the late replacement.
Yep.
2 weeks
That's
out,
true.
he has a meltdown in the press conference, and then he
Yeah.
pulls out. So
Yeah.
that's why I'm saying, coupled with the fact that it's only 2 weeks before, like he must have known that his uncle was ill.
Yeah.
So I'm saying this is the counter argument.
Okay.
The argument for it being legitimate is his uncle took a turn for worse, and so they couldn't continue. I'm happy that that could be the case. I'm
Okay.
giving you the counter argument.
But
And
let's go.
those are my counter arguments. The meltdown in the press conference
Yeah.
it's not proof, yeah, but
Okay.
it creates doubt. You understand what? Because
Okay, but
this
if
is
we
the whole
use
point. What I'm saying, my whole argument is, it's not unreasonable to
okay,
doubt Tyson Fury telling us the truth.
okay, but if we use the Occam's razor logic here, the most logical reason why he did pull out of the fight was because of his uncle in critical condition. That's the
I'm
most
not really
logical.
even sure it is in this instance. I'm
Okay,
gonna have to verify if there's any information about when his uncle became ill, because
I mean he was
it was a
hospitalized
2 week
in
replacement.
intensive care. He was hospitalized in intensive care,
Yeah. But if he'd have been in there
and
for
he
a
did
while,
pass away weeks later,
no,
very
I know
shortly
that,
thereafter.
but it's all a small window because he is a
Yeah.
2 week late replacement.
Okay,
So
but
he'd agreed to it. So
all right,
if he's already in intensive care,
yeah.
2 weeks out, and he agrees to it, he has a press conference, he has a meltdown, and then he pulls out. That isn't the most logical answer.
But if you read
I'm going to double check it again.
read the
It's a long
article.
time ago.
Read the article, and when I remember, and again, I'll admit
I'm
if I'm
going to
wrong.
verify everything that we're talking about.
Yeah, what I read was due to his uncle being admitted to intensive care, that's when he pulled out. So my argument is, in both instances, if you use the Occam's razor theory and principles, we come to two simplest forms of reasoning why those two fights he pulled out of, right?
Mm.
So that's my position. I'm just going to ask you a hypothetical. If you were in that situation and it was your family member, how would you react to it? And again, that's a hypothetical.
The only thing I can tell you is,
there's a good chance that I would pull out if I was in that situation.
When my father died, I went back to work on the Monday.
Yeah, I went when my dad died. I took 3 days off. I took 3 days off from work.
My dad died on Saturday, and I went to work on the Monday.
Yeah, when my dad passed away, I took the 3 days bereavement and I went back to work. But I wasn't fighting in a fight.
Well, that's the point. So I'm not saying I would.
Yeah.
But I've suffered bereavements at work.
And when I did go back to work, I was a wreck. I remember when my mother died. And I took my bereavement. I went back to work. Every time someone came up to me and said, "I'm sorry," I had to fight back the tears. And then when they walked away from me, I would go into a area where there was no one there, and I would break down because it took me a long time to get over it. And that state, I was not at my optimal state, even in going back to work. That's just my position on it.
Well, I actually didn't, because I didn't really want to think about it. So I like having a focus.
Okay. Maybe you used work as a way to get over the grief.
No, that's exactly what I did. So I'm happy that everybody's different, and it it doesn't necessarily make me stronger for being able to go and do that.
No,
Because I need that was my crutch, was actually being in work. So I can't really answer the question in that if it was me, I might well go through with it, but that might actually benefit me in that process because I'd have to focus on something to focus on, so I didn't have to focus
So the
on.
way I break this,
but that's just different people. So, in answer to your question, I don't know, but there's a reasonable chance I would. But other people do, and they go through with fights. Some of them win those fights.
correct.
It's only when it goes badly that they get criticised and say, "Oh, you shouldn't have taken the fight."
More often than not, though, John. More often than not, though, John, it does go badly, right? I mean, there are
I'd have
outliers.
to actually go through that and double check it.
Okay.
And look, if someone can't go through with a fight because of it, of grief, that's fine. I haven't got a problem with that.
So you think both?
So again, with this particular circumstance, I'm happy that the argument that it was true has got validity, but I understand why people have their suspicions and doubts about it being true as well.
Because it happens too many times. Because it does. Yeah, it has happened a lot of times.
Well, it wasn't his dad; it was his uncle.
Okay.
Yeah, to start.
But it was his trainer's brother. So
yeah, but I don't know how close they were. Him and John don't talk. They still don't talk. In fact, Tyson hasn't spoken to Peter since.
But they were close at that time, though, John. They were close.
No. I'm saying within that family, there's clearly a track record of people falling out long term.
Yeah,
it happens. Now, it doesn't mean they had. Doesn't mean that that's the case. I mean, I think the reason that Tyson doesn't talk to Peter and Peter's not his trainer is because Peter is the one who had him on Nandrolo. And I think that's why Huey pops as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think Tyson blames him for that.
I think Tyson probably did blame him because Huey also tested positive for the Nandrolone as well.
Yeah.
So that's a plausible argument that he blamed.
No, but it doesn't really matter to this conversation. I mean, that's just my opinion.
No,
but what I'm saying is that family has shown, and Peter and John have shown that they, as brothers, could never talk to each other possibly ever again. So it's been a long time since they spoke.
So the way I break this down is, I think the simplest reasoning and the simplest rationalization and the most logical rationalization. And again, you could disagree. Anyone could disagree, but the Ustinov fight, I believe, was because of the uncle, right? And then the situation with Klitschko, I believe, was because of the failed drug test. Now, when we look at this situation, right, the simplest logical explanation would be, yeah, he suffered the cut in sparring, and that's why the fight's being postponed.
Are we going to do Pulev as well? I mean,
yeah, do the Pulev one. Go ahead, do the Pulev one.
I'm going to do it properly. It was a long time ago. I can't remember if it was signed, to be honest.
I don't think the fight was ever signed, but that's the thing. That's why I don't.
No, I can't do it. What I'm going to say,
fights that aren't officially signed, I don't talk about. If there's been plenty of failed negotiations in boxing.
I mean, these ones come up with this as well because
these were signed. Klitschko was a signed fight, and the Ustinov was a signed fight. The Pula one wasn't signed.
The reason
he never officially signed to fight Joshua. Joshua never officially signed before recently. Fight Wilder, so I'm not. I don't.
The reason that they come up in the argument is because so many are associated with Fury, and also the amount of lies that he does tell.
Does lie a lot.
Are often around.
But being a liar, and having a questionable character still doesn't mean that I think he bladed himself. That's my position.
No, that's okay.
Just like the Glovegate people were trying to say he loaded his gloves with egg weights because he tested positive for Nandrolone. Now, do you believe that?
I don't think there's a benefit in loading your gloves with egg weights. That's the problem with that.
Okay.
Like,
Do you think there's a benefit of losing tens of millions of
right,
dollars?
okay, but there's a difference. I think if you loaded your hands with egg weights, you'd probably break your own hand, and you wouldn't necessarily hit harder.
Whatever.
So based on that, I
You think
don't
he
think.
tampered with his gloves because some sparring partner said that he took the padding out of his gloves? You think he did that in the Wilder fight, even though even though the glove inspectors were checking them? Do you believe that? Because he tested positive.
Right, okay. So
See, if we
when
try
it
to
comes
connect the dots,
down
like
to
if we
no,
try to
hold
if we
on.
try to compare
If
situations to
you're gonna ask
situations.
me the question, let me answer it.
All right, good.
Don't answer it for me. Personally, I don't think this is the same for starters.
Okay.
I think the Glovegate stuff. I've always known that, like the footage of Wilder getting banjoed by Romanov in the amateurs has been out there his entire career. The idea that however you rate Wilder's power or not, that he's got a good chin because he hits hard seems to be where they're coming from. So I don't think Wilder has a very good chin. So I don't think you need to go to those lengths to knock him out. On top of that, some of the theories that they actually put forward would be you'd be more likely to break your own hand and actually get a knockout punch. So that's why I didn't entertain that, because I don't think there's any plausibility in it whatsoever. When you've got a guy who's got a proven track record of pulling out of fights, it creates.
He's only pulled out of 2 fights.
Well, this is the third,
This
and
is
you
the
could
third.
argue,
This is the third fight.
this is the third one.
So he's
And
only pulled out of 3 fights
well, that's
that he was
okay.
actually signed for.
Tell me anybody else who's pulled out of 3 signed fights who's boxing at the moment.
David Hay.
He's not boxing at the
moment. If you look at
and again, I wouldn't put it.
This fight isn't officially like this is postponed. Like if you look at Archer Betterbeef, his last two fights were postponed too. And then people accused him of intentionally postponing the fights because they feel as though he was taking steroids and he wanted to kind of be able to cycle off his steroids. So,
and I understand why they have those suspicions, and we found he had some weird tests as well.
Okay. Do you believe? Okay, so you're suspicious of him possibly too, or no?
Yeah, no, I like Arthur. I'll be really disappointed if it ever comes out that he's.
So he's officially pulled out of 2 fights, and this fight is not.
I understand, right?
This fight and the last fight he pulled out of was 9 years ago. So with recent history, he hasn't pulled out of any fights.
Hold on a minute. Hold on.
9 years ago, we're going back.
Let's answer that example that you got of Arthur there, because I like him. I've always picked him to beat Bivol.
I picked him to beat Bivol too.
Yeah, no, I picked him to beat Vosdick before the fight as well, when most people thought Vosdick would win easily, because I think people don't appreciate the skill that pressure fighters have. They think the only skill that exists for a lot of people is back foot fighting, which isn't true. You can be a highly skilled inside fighter and pressure fighter, but they don't really recognise that anymore. So I'd be very disappointed if it all turned out the reason we have these delays and these injuries is to mask him cycling on enough drugs. But if people are suspicious about it, I haven't got a problem with them being suspicious about it, because there's grounds for suspicion. Doesn't mean they're right, but it doesn't mean they're being unreasonable for having these doubts. So that's Arthur. That's my answer on that.
Okay. But John, let me ask you this. And I'm trying to be as logical as possible and objective as possible here. Fury has given us a lot of false hopes over the years by letting us down. We thought that the Klitschko rematch was going to happen. It didn't happen. We thought that fights with Joshua were going to happen. And this Usyk thing, people can argue it's been dragged out. I do believe Usyk would have been ready December 23rd. I do believe he would have been ready. I do believe Usyk was ready here. So yeah, I mean, these last 2 dates were because they didn't go through because of Fury. We can't deny that. That's fair. But this whole thing of him constantly pulling out of fights, we can only go to 2 fights. And this, you can argue this is the third, but it's postponed. So those fights never happened, but this still could happen. So is this actually a cancellation or a postponement? So only 2 fights in this man's career have that he officially signed for, he pulled out of and they were canceled. That's number one. And the last time it happened was 9 years ago. So since his comeback in 2018, he hasn't pulled out of any fights that he's agreed to, that have been made official, that he actually signed for. So this whole thing, now you could argue controversy surrounds him, chaos surrounds the guy, but this whole notion of him constantly pulling out of fights that he's officially signed for, I do think it's overstated. I do think it's overstated, right? And like I said, with or without Fury, Usyk's only fought once a year since 2019. He's only fought once a year since moving up to heavyweight. That's with or without Fury. After beating Joshua, the rematch didn't happen until 11 months later because they were having problems with the money situation and negotiating for that fight. So, I mean, everyone has problems making big fights. It's like that's the norm in boxing. When you have two big names or people who think they believe, and which every right they have the right to feel they're worth a certain amount. No, that's part of the game. Like it took 11 months for the rematch with Joshua to happen. So everyone acts like everything is easy when it comes to making big fights, and the only time big fights don't get made is when it's Fury. No, we can go down the list of big fights not being made when we want them. Like look at Canelo and Benavidez. Like Spence Crawford. We can go down the list. So I'm not trying to run interference for Fury here, but I think a lot of these, because Fury rubs people the wrong way, because he comes off and he has lied a lot and he has contradicted himself a lot, and he hasn't given boxing fans always a lot to be happy about. I'm not denying any of that, but because of the dislike of Fury, which people have a right to dislike him because of the way he's carried himself. He hasn't carried himself like Anthony Joshua has. He hasn't been the best heavyweight champion in the world. He hasn't defended his title multiple times. He hasn't been as consistent. He has had long layoffs. I get all that, right? And I'll go back to the point, not to sound redundant, but Joshua is the only one who really has been consistent over the years. And most recently, I would say he's been represented the heavyweight division the best out of anyone because of his consistency. And people think I throw shade on Joshua. I got to give him credit for his consistency, but I just think a lot of these criticisms of Fury are overstated. But then the rebuttal to that is, well, he brings it on himself. Okay, that's fine because of the way he acts.
The rebuttal I was going to use.
Say again?
That wasn't the rebuttal I was going to use.
I know. I'm not saying you were going to use it, but that's what everybody else.
I still think the point that you're ignoring is, name me another active fighter, that's pulled out of 2 signed fights.
Actually pulled out, and they were canceled.
Yeah.
Fights that were actually signed. I would have to go back and do research on that.
Because I think when you go through it, there aren't many.
Yeah. But we're going back 9 years, though, John.
Okay.
We're going back 9 years.
Potentially going back 9 years.
We're going back 9 years, which is a long.
We are potentially going back 9 years.
We're going back 9 years, though, John. That's the problem.
No, I'm not disputing that, right? However, if in that 9 years there isn't really anybody else doing it, then you can't blame people for not forgetting, because it is that much of an unusual event.
Listen.
So because it is that unusual, yeah, and he's done it twice, not once, twice, yeah, and it's not like you can list off a whole load of other people that have done it before easily. You're going to have to go through it and really think it out, or go back over a huge expanse of time. And for those same fighters to have done it, they probably don't have the best reputations either. they probably had to carry that with them afterwards. That, you know, if they ever had a legitimate reason for pulling out of a fight again, people would be suspicious.
Yeah.
So my whole argument with this, you're going to use the Occam's razor, right? That only works when you've got all the information, because there could be an incredibly logical reason, but you haven't got that information.
But
so with the Vlad pullout, I'm pretty confident we've pretty much got all the information with that. And the argument that he pulled out because he knew he was going to get banned anyway doesn't read well, does it?
No, it doesn't.
No, it really doesn't.
It doesn't, because he was lying. He was lying,
yeah, exactly,
to cover it up. Which Alicia Baumgartner's doing right now.
I mean, look, I'm not.
Which Alicia Baumgartner's doing right now.
I'm not here to defend anybody that's failing.
And people are going to go, well, Beeb, you're using whataboutisms. No, these are what is it. These are what isms. These are isms. These are facts.
I'm not here to defend Alicia Baumgartner.
No, I'm not either. But people are going to say,
like, no. But my point
name one person, John. Let's be fair now. We want to use, like, we want to look at history and empirical data. Name one person that doesn't try to lie their way out of a failed drug test. Name one person that doesn't use deception.
In boxing, I can name someone.
I think Canelo Alvarez is probably one of the rare cases that I believe, and I actually do believe.
No, I mean, I'm not going to use Canelo because, I mean,
that's my opinion. You don't have to agree with it.
No, I'm not happy about that one. And he also,
we do have evidence. We do have evidence that
he also tried to use the follicle test as well to say that it was all fine.
Well,
so at least
I believe Conor Benn because I did the research and I've studied, and for him to have that minuscule amount in there, if he was to take it, let me just say one thing, John, please, this is very important. I did the research with the clomiphene, and for him to have that little trace amounts, it would be impossible for that to only be there if that was taken in pill form. That is clearly, in my opinion, and strong science supports this, from contaminated chicken or poultry or eggs, given the amount that was in the system. Same situation with Canelo, given the small, the amount, like a nanogram equal to like a pinch of salt, right? For that, for it to be that low when taking it exogenously, it's almost impossible for it to be that low. That's the science. But you can disagree if you want. I'm not here to change people's minds. I'm here to state my opinion from a logical standpoint. That's all. But go ahead.
Right, as for Canelo, I'm not really going to debate that one up and down.
Okay, that's fine.
I feel like I have inside information on that whole Eddie Reynoso camp, that there's a lot of issues with ped cheating in that camp. So I'm biased. Let's leave it there, because I don't. I think he's a drug cheat, and that's why he was so big on his manipulation in his early career. But he's not the only one, and I wasn't going to give an example of a boxer who hadn't tried to lie their way out of a failed drug test. As for Conor Benn, it wasn't a failed drug test. Like the Dillian White situation, like the Artur Beterbiev situation, there are other types of drug tests that happen that aren't a straight fail, that are grey areas, because science isn't exact. Like, you cannot prove something scientifically to 100%. It's not possible. So there are grey areas in this testing as well, where people actually aren't lying, they're telling the truth, and they haven't failed. So I'm quite happy about the potential that Conor Benn didn't cheat. I'm biased against Canelo, so I'm not like, if people want to think that it's legitimate exposure through other things, that's fine. I think there's other things that have gone on that he hasn't got caught for, which make me unable to form an objective opinion about that whole Eddie Renault.
And John, not to interrupt you, but I think it's fair to suspect anyone in the top 10 of
That's all
probably.
right. I mean, if people have got suspicions, that's fine.
Yeah, I
It's
understand that.
it's like with that
I
article.
understand. I'm not naive. I understand that from what
Yeah,
I've been.
yeah. No. That's
I understand that.
fine.
I understand
But
that, John.
the point about the Occam's razor thing is you need all the information to know which is the most logical assumption. Now, I don't think we're ever going to know enough about the Usyk situation because it's family personal business that they don't need to disclose. And I don't know that we've got a right to know. Yeah. Which means that we can't put enough level of scrutiny on the information to know for definite. So we're making too many assumptions.
John,
So
can I just
I just think personally it's reasonable to be doubtful of this guy based on the fact that you can't name me two other people that have pulled out of
I
fights
can't.
that
I
are
can't.
signed.
I'll have to do the research on it.
Yeah, exactly. So it's not a usual.
That's a fair question that I
It's
cannot
not.
answer. I
But
admit
even if
it.
you go and do the research, right, it's an
Yeah.
unusual event in
Yeah.
boxing. The fact that you've got to go.
Statistically, from what I know off the
You
top of my
can
head,
name off the top of your head.
I can't do what you're asking me to do.
You can name off the top of your head famous fights that were
I
postponed.
can't.
No. Separate thing. Off the top of your head, you are able, because you've already done it, to tell me about famous fights that were postponed because of injury.
Correct.
Okay?
I have.
Even though that's not particularly common, it's common enough that we know about them.
Yeah.
So what I'm trying to say to you is that the people that doubt Fury are at least not being unreasonable to doubt him, even if they're wrong, because it's so unusual to have a guy that's pulled out of two fights that he signed for that it creates suspicion, particularly when we're talking about somebody who's not very honest most of the time anyway.
Oh, he's a liar.
And one of the pullouts we're talking about, he faked an injury to cover up the fact that he was going to get banned for nandrolone.
I agree with that.
Like you know,
There
so
was
the whole thing.
but there was a reason. There was a
But he
motive.
actually faked
There
an
was a
injury.
motive. There was more of a
You
motive.
believe he faked an injury?
Correct. There was more of a motive to fake that injury.
Well, I don't know what the motive would be, and I've just got
the motive is to cover up the nandrolone.
No, in this case.
Oh, in this case, I don't have a motive.
No, like in the
That's what I'm trying
case,
to. John, this is the problem. Let me just interrupt one briefly. I apologize. Occam razor can't be if you apply it here. The most logical explanation is he legitimately suffered the cut in sparring, and the fight's postponed. But what you're doing, and I don't mean this in a disrespectful way. See how many layers you have to add. Okay, maybe it was Photoshop. Maybe the video was edited. Even Adam Catterall said maybe it was an old video. How could it be an old video? Like they had the Riyadh season on the logo of the ring. Or maybe it was from a couple of weeks ago. Okay, well, if it was from a couple of weeks ago, then why wouldn't the fight be canceled? Like how's he going to cover the cut from a couple? You see what I'm saying? See the layers we have to go to try to piece this together. We didn't have to go through all those layers.
No,
To come up with conclusions for the other two incidences. So if you have to add all these layers to try to make sense,
and I'll explain to you why.
Okay.
So the day that Fury announced his injury, I still need to check the dates. I was part way through it and got sidetracked.
Are you talking about the
Vlad
from the
one.
clip from the Vlad, right?
The Vlad. The following day, because I remember it happening very well because I was following it. I don't think the nandrolone had been announced at that point, personally, and we disagree on that. But nobody put out a video on YouTube the day after saying he's doing this to cover up his nandrolone drug test. I know that for a fact. Lots of people didn't believe the injury at the time. They thought it was fake. Some people thought it was tit for tat for Vlad postponing. I remember that happening as well.
Yeah. And Vlad
Some,
Vlad himself
some
has
people,
admitted
some
both Klitschko brothers have admitted using steroids in the past as well as amateurs. But go ahead.
well, I didn't know that. I only when it popped. I
Yeah,
didn't know
you can Google that.
Well, I
You can
know
Google that.
Vitaly's popped it.
Yeah, Vlad too.
Okay. Well, what is it? I don't like. That's irrelevant to this point. My point is, the day after the announcement, we didn't have all the information, in my opinion, so we couldn't apply Occam's razor. I don't think we've got all the information about the Usyk one, so I don't think we can apply Occam's razor. We may get all the information about this one in a day or so, and then yeah, you apply it.
John, here's the problem with what you just said.
No, there isn't. I don't think there is.
Respectfully, when the fight was actually called off officially, and he used mental health as the excuse for pulling out of that fight with Vlad, everybody knew about the Nandrolone, John.
That's when the fight's postponed. Like,
That's my argument.
That's
The
cancelled.
whole faking the injury thing. I understand where you're coming from with that.
Right.
My argument is this, John. This is my argument. It was plausible and, in my opinion, easily logical to come to that conclusion after the fight was officially canceled. The injury, when that happened and was announced, the fight was not canceled at that time. It was postponed. So the fight being officially canceled, that's my argument, John. I'm not refuting what you're saying about him lying about the injury and people not being able to know about the Nandrolone, or maybe they did, maybe they didn't at that point in time. That's not the argument. My argument is when that fight was canceled officially, the Nandrolone and the UCAD investigation was made public at that time. Can we at least agree on that?
I think you kind of proved my point, though, with what you just said.
I'm sorry?
This fight hasn't been...
No, I agree.
No,
he lied about that ankle injury.
Let me
or at the very least, he overstated.
That's not what I'm saying.
Or at the very least, he overstated.
That isn't what I'm saying, B.
Okay, go ahead. Go ahead.
So you're saying you could apply Occam's razor once the fight was cancelled?
I could, yes.
Right, okay. This fight hasn't been cancelled. Yeah.
That's what I'm saying, John.
No, but this is what
you're making my argument for me.
No, I think you're making my argument for me.
No.
I'll explain why. So my whole point is we don't have all the information yet because we're a day after the event. And to apply Occam's razor, we do need all the information. So you've just said the day after he pulled out of the Vlad fight, second fight, it wasn't cancelled. And it took more time for all the information to come out and for the fight to actually be cancelled before you were able to apply Occam's razor.
Okay.
That is what I am saying in this situation. We're the day after. Yeah. So we don't know.
So
that's my stance. My whole stance is we don't know. And I think your argument has total legitimacy, as does Chris Andre's argument.
D-Style Boxing's argument. D-Style Box. We got to give.
Yeah, all of these people.
He's the guy that brought up Occam's razor to me, and I have to give him credit for that.
Okay, so I am happy that everybody's argument there has got legitimacy. I'm not saying that you guys are wrong. Yeah. What I'm saying is, it's too soon. We don't know, and all the people who have doubts also are reasonable to have those same doubts because of the guy's track record.
Well,
the reason and you can go through all of the track record and all the rest of it, yeah. But really, we're looking at two previous examples. One that we know he lied about an injury because he failed a drugs test and he was just covering up that. And the other one, it's about real personal information that we're never going to really know all the information about it at all. So that could be legitimate in my opinion, or it could not be legitimate in my opinion.
Yeah.
What I do think will probably happen in this case is over the course of the week or however long, we'll get to the bottom We'll get all the information will come out. Maybe the fight will get fully cancelled, not postponed. And at that stage, you will be able to apply Occam's razor. And we'll know, most
Well,
likely.
the reason why I'm applying Occam's razor here is because I believe the cut was legit. I don't believe it was from a razor blade. I believe the video that shows the elbow hitting him in the eye, which people are refuting, I believe that to be legitimate. So I am accepting the most simplest logical reason, in my opinion, which is the simplest conclusion that you can come to is that he legitimately suffered the cut in sparring. I believe it. So
That's okay. I mean,
I'm not
skeptical.
just like I believed that Fury tested positive for nandrolone and he was going to be suspended for 2 years anyways. I believed those things. Now, if other people didn't, that's on them. So
Right, okay, but
I'm accepting the simplest explanation here, which is
so that baseline assumption that you make about all of that being legitimate.
Correct.
I can see why people are questioning the sparring one. I can 100% see why they're questioning.
Okay. And that's
the main reason that people are questioning it is the lack of blood. There isn't any anyway. And where he actually gets hit, the way that his head moves, I've seen people question that would indicate he was being hit on the chin, not the eye. I'd need to have a better look at it myself. But they're not putting it forward as conclusive proof that he's bladed his own eye. They're saying that the people that I've seen who've made those questions, have said it's reasonable to question that footage. That footage they don't believe is conclusive evidence. I think the lack of blood for a cut that size is a bit.
You can't really see the blood though because you don't have the close up to see the blood.
So this is again what I'm saying. I don't think you're an idiot for thinking that those two things are legitimate.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I can walk you through.
And it may turn out that they are legitimate.
I can walk you through.
No. I don't need walking through.
Let me just explain my position, though. Let me explain my position.
I think I understand your position. You think there's enough evidence there to say A, the cut's real.
Yeah.
And B, if the cut is real, he's got to postpone the fight.
But can I just say a couple things? And I'm not. Again, this isn't me trying to convince you.
No, that's all right.
When the elbow comes down, right, and it lands, when you get hit. Your automatic reaction when you get hit is to pull back, right? When someone comes at you to hit you, and even if it lands or not, your automatic reaction is to pull back. That's number one, right? And when the elbow comes down, I believe you could see it land in that area. Now, people are saying that he got hit in the chin. Very well could have. The tip of the elbow could have hit the eye. But the mid to bottom part of the forearm did hit his chin. But immediately when he turns around, he puts his hand over his eye. So why would he do that? That's what I'm saying. Or why would they film it?
Well, I know what their answer to that is. Yeah.
That he scripted it? That he scripted the whole thing?
Well, some people think that. I'm not even saying it was. But B. Right.
But see what we're doing? We're adding layers and layers and layers to this to try to make it work.
No, because I'm not saying they're right.
Yeah?
Okay. So I don't think you're unreasonable for thinking that the cut's genuine and the sparring footage is genuine. I'm not saying you're unreasonable for thinking that. On the flip side, because of his track record and people having doubts and the fact that there were polls out there on whether this fight was going to happen or not, I've seen people posting and asking the question, do you think the fight will happen? The amount of people who are out there.
They were right.
No, but it's not about them being right. It's
they
not
were right.
Look, I could have come on here.
They were validated. Their opinions were validated. It's not happening on February 17th. I was wrong. I'm wrong. I'm wrong. I thought it was going to happen on February 17th. I'll put my hand up. I'm wrong.
It's not about that. If I wanted to come on here and have that conversation with you, I could have led with it.
Sure, I
Because
get it.
we came on. I came on one of your platforms. Can't remember if it's Maestro or you. Yeah.
It was Maestro and me, yeah?
No, but I can't remember if it's his platform or
Okay, go
your
ahead.
platform. I know you
Yep.
two guys were on there, saying that I didn't believe the fight was going to be going to happen. Yeah. I haven't come on here to say I told you so. It's not what I've come on here.
Oh, I don't
for.
believe you did.
No,
I don't believe you did.
no. So it isn't about them being right. When I'm saying people putting polls out there and posting videos weeks ago about them thinking Fury's going to pull out, it's indicative, yeah, that it's okay to have suspicions at this stage in the process where we don't have all the information. That's my stance, and I don't think you're unreasonable for believing him, and I don't think they're unreasonable for having doubts, because I don't think we really know everything yet.
You know,
I don't think anybody, and I listened to Chris Andre went through things in quite good detail. I did point out he didn't cover whether it had been photoshopped, the photo. He didn't cover that.
I think he said it.
Yeah, I listened to it. He didn't go through it. Hatman's gone into detail about it could have been photoshopped. I mean, the counter argument for it being photoshopped is, well, surely the Saudis are going to hold him to an account and want to see the cut because of all the money they've spent.
And that's another thing, John. Do you think the Saudis that have invested so much money in this are going to allow Fury to pull a fast one over on them? That's another one. That's another one too,
That
John.
doesn't mean Fury wouldn't try. So I think it's all too soon.
But John,
hold on.
John, he gets excited.
No, I'm not excited. I'm just saying, I want to finish my sentence. Yeah. I think it's too soon. And to ridicule people for having doubts about Tyson Fury pulling out of a fight for legitimate reasons is unfair on those people, because I think that it's reasonable for them to have their doubts. In the same way, I think it's reasonable for you to believe Tyson Fury on surface level. Because I've not said here I know he's lying. I've not said I know they've scripted and faked the sparring footage. I haven't said I think it's been photoshopped. I've pointed out I'm assuming that the Saudis probably would want a bit more of doctor's verification.
Yeah.
And his cut man saying that cut is going to need him to be out of the ring for 3 months.
Is it a coincidence though that cut is in the same area that the one he suffered in the Wallen fight?
Okay, but then that kind of goes into the photoshopped argument, doesn't it? Because then they've got previous material to use. So
you're telling me they took
I'm just saying that
these,
how those
again, there's a lot of layers, John. There's a lot.
No, there are a lot of layers, but we're talking about a guy
see what I'm saying?
Injuries.
It's a lot of layers.
We're talking about a guy who's faked injuries before and put out fake photos of those fake injuries. Yeah,
the ankle. We're talking about the ankle, right?
Yeah, but that, by your own admission, that's something that he's done.
Yep.
Yeah, so he has gone to those sort of lengths to get out of a fight for reasons that were different to the ones he was putting forward in the past. He's got a track record. You tell me another fighter that's put out a photo of an injury to pull out of a fight that he signed for, and then later on we found out that he pulled out for a reason.
Again, the ankle. Can't do it. I can't do it, but I will say this: the ankle could have been bruised, right?
So based
not to the extent where he had to pull out of the fight.
So based on that,
do you think the bruise was? That bruise was a fake bruise?
I saw people say that like their wife was a makeup artist who worked in film, and she knew that was a fake from looking at the photos. I couldn't say that.
I don't think I'm not 100% sure the injury itself was fake. Was it bad enough? Was the injury bad enough to pull out of the fight? That's what I'm questioning. That's what I'm questioning.
I'm not qualified to tell you that was a fake photo. Yeah.
Like was that
the dates on that photo of the ankle could have been doctored as well.
This is what I suspect. That could have happened weeks prior, and
Yeah,
it healed in time,
yeah,
and maybe he. I'm not.
yeah, exactly.
That's plausible.
Right.
But this was put out right away.
But my point
And
is,
he did an interview with Adi Adedipo with no scars or bruises on his face.
but the point is,
if he starts walking around with stitches on his eye, I think the Photoshop argument's going to go out the window.
yeah, it will.
But
It will. And I'm not here to die on any sort of hill.
What's the likelihood of it being photoshopped, in your opinion? I'm going to say 0%, but you can disagree.
I'm not going to go as far as 0, but I don't think it's very high because we haven't seen much of Tyson. Tyson's quite good at disappearing when he wants to.
Yeah.
So if we don't see Tyson for a good 4, 5, 6 weeks, see him at all, there's no photos of him, then that would make me then become a lot more suspicious about it. Chances of that happening are pretty low. He's got to get from Saudi Arabia to the UK with all this media fuss around it, and for a photographer to not be able to get a photo of it,
I bet,
and see the eye, is very low. So I'd probably give it about a 5% chance, which is.
I would give it a 0%.
But
I would bet, like you just said, I would bet dollars to donuts within the next 5 to 7 days we will see a picture of him with a stitched eye.
Yeah, I expect we will, but I wouldn't rule out the possibility that we don't. But let's look at this. If you perform a scientific experiment and you get a 95% result, that's usually pretty good.
Yeah.
So I'm giving it a 5% chance.
All right. What percentage do you give that he cut himself with a razor himself, or had someone do it on that same spot where he suffered the cut?
I think it's about a 25% chance he played.
I give that a 0% as well.
Yeah, I know. Right.
Okay.
But I'll give it a 25% chance, which in my opinion is low.
Yeah.
That's low. And that's at this stage. And I think in time, I think within 2 weeks, this will be cleared up. Like, it'll either be, it might be less than that. It might be
What worries me the most is this. Because of his mental state of mind and the mood swings and the up and downs that this guy suffers and the lack of discipline in between fights, will he blow up? Will he get depressed? Will he just say, fuck this? I trained my ass off and now this isn't happening. Will he? Again, he could.
I don't really believe.
Now, if you ask me what percentage of this now, based on circumstances right now, if you ask me if this fight is going to actually be rescheduled, because if I'm Usyk, I'm saying to myself, why the fuck am I waiting around for this guy? That's number one, right? All the shit this guy talked, regardless if this injury is legit or not, which I believe it is, and I do believe they think it's legitimate, and I think they react. You know what?
Have you heard what Igor Klima said about it?
Yeah, I don't think he believes that. I think he's angry.
Maybe.
I can't prove it. That's just my opinion.
No, I mean, he sounds pretty angry.
I don't think Fury believed that David Haye bladed himself either. I think he was mad and it was an emotional response. I don't think Muhammad Ali believed that George Foreman was trying to get out of the fight with him, even though he did have an emotional response initially to the cut.
I have a very different take on that anyway.
What's your take on that? I'm curious.
I think that Ali benefited from that circumstance.
100%.
So, and I'm suspicious that one of the reasons Ali never gave him the rematch was because he didn't think he could do it again. But that's by the by. Like, Ali had a big mouth, and I think he wanted to make sure that it wasn't postponed too far. I mean, that's different.
I want all the helicopters.
Yeah. But
private boats.
We're talking about
private planes. I want them all guarded. I don't want this guy
outside Sonny Liston's house with air traps and stuff to try and get a fight. I'm not a particular fan of Muhammad Ali anyway.
You don't like Muhammad Ali?
Not a big fan though.
Okay.
He's rated as my second best all-time heavyweight.
I actually do like George Foreman better than him as a
Oh,
fighter.
well, by far, I prefer Big George.
I'm a huge George Foreman fan.
Well, right,
I'm a
okay,
huge Lennox Lewis fan too. Believe you know.
right. So my two favorite all-time heavyweights are Liston and Joe Lewis. They're my favorite.
Okay, that's fair.
They're
That's
my
fair.
favorite too. In terms of greatness, you got to have Ali at number 2. Anyway,
If
Um,
Fury
you got to have Ali and Joe Lewis as 1 and 2. If you don't have those two as your 1 and 2, then I don't understand.
I'll be honest with you, man.
Saying.
If Fury does not fight Usyk, because I've been the biggest Fury fan ever, but I've been objective. I thought Ngannou eked out that win in a fight that could have gone either way. I've been objective. I'm not here to defend his character. He is a liar. He has lied in the past. He is a hypocrite. He hasn't been consistent. I'll concede all those things, but he has shown up for the big fights and performed. That's why I like the guy, right? I do think he's funny, even though he can come off as irritating to some. I think he trolls a lot. I think he bullshits a lot, and it's not everyone's cup of tea. I do think he bullshits a lot for the sake of entertainment. Whether that's accepted or not, that's up to anyone to whether or not they want to accept that. But if he does not fight Usyk and he retires without fighting Usyk, his stock significantly goes down. Significantly.
Well, that's irrelevant to me because his stock's not very high in my book at the moment.
John, even you would have to concede that if he beats Usyk, you would have to elevate him a little bit, wouldn't you?
Right, if he beats Usyk,
that's a big if. That's a big if based off of this.
Well, first of all, I thought I've made some predictions that Usyk's going to knock him out on the 17th. Those were my predictions. I thought he was going to, and I've posted them enough to be able to verify that. For weeks, I've been saying it. And the reason that I thought it, and it's something that I've consistently thought, and it's potentially the reason why I think he might actually fake a pullout as well, is because I felt that his legs have been gone.
You have said that.
Since the second Wilder fight. And I think he's coming in the 270s because he can't do
but he looked significantly lower than 277 in these pictures recently. Right?
Yeah, but no, I'm not going off that. Do you not remember the Andy Ruiz photos before the Joshua rematch?
Yeah, but John, this was 2 weeks out.
So were they.
He's not going to balloon up that.
No. I'm just saying that you can look a certain way in the photo.
You're not suggesting that he would have blown up
No. I'm saying you can look away in a photo and it not be representative of the true actual.
That's fair, but I think he was going to come in. I think he was coming in at the 265 or below mark.
Maybe.
In my opinion.
We don't know. We don't know.
I can't factually say that, but that I strongly suspect.
But that's fairly irrelevant because I think when his legs were gone, he came in sort of that type of weight against so Wallin as well.
That's correct.
That footage of him training with significant leg dysfunction. If you watch the third Wilder fight and you watch how he moves in that fight, his back leg, his right leg, there's something up with it. It doesn't bend the right way.
And he could have been injured in that fight.
No, I think it's long-term dysfunction in his leg.
You think that's not just an acute injury? You think that's something that's going to follow him around the rest of his career?
Yeah, I think it's been following him around.
Okay.
And to me, that explains a lot.
I'll keep an eye on that.
We'll just go back and watch some of his fights.
I
think that's why he's changed.
That's what I'm saying. I'm going to have to go back and take a look at that. I'm not ruling it out. I'm not going to rule it
out. And we haven't seen any significant movement from Fury since the first Wilder fight, really.
I thought he moved pretty good in the Dillian White fight.
There wasn't any movement to be done. He held the center of the ring. And because Dillian had to come to him.
I think
I thought he executed the perfect game plan.
I think,
but there wasn't.
He used good spacing in that fight, and I think he did excellent counter punching and set traps very well.
Yeah. But that was
I think his jab was very sharp.
That was the right tactics, but he didn't do any significant movement, and he didn't
Yeah.
need to, and it probably would have been a pointless thing. He's got like a 6-inch reach advantage over.
He has an 85-inch reach advantage.
He,
And to be fair, when you follow the careers of most fighters as they transition into their later years, you could look at Andre Ward.
he's not the only
You could
one.
look at Muhammad Ali. You could look at
Muhammad Ali is 100% the case that he lost his ability to be a mover in the 70s. I mean, I think
correct.
From when he
Andre Ward started moving less as he got older.
Yeah. Look,
even Floyd Mayweather started moving less as he got older.
Hopkins
started moving less as he got older. These guys transitioned.
It's not an isolated incident.
No.
Right? But it's the reason I've been predicting Usyk to knock him out.
Correct. That's
because
fine.
I think the volume of activity that Usyk produces, because I also don't like the look of Fury's gas tank anymore.
That's fair.
So I think they're connected. I think the bad leg has meant that he's come in heavier because he can't do the aerobic exercise, keep the weight off. And I think the lack of aerobic exercise has affected his gas tank. And then in the ring, because he's got this long-term injury,
he's been doing wind sprints for this one, though, John. He's been doing wind sprints up hills for this one.
There hasn't been any footage of his training.
I FaceTimed him a couple days
ago. Yeah, okay, all right. You know, it's okay, babe.
I like fucking with you, man.
No, you're not fucking with me. You just sound like a kid at Christmas. But anyway.
No, he's these are all legitimate. These are all legitimate concerns, though, John. John, these are all legitimate concerns that you're bringing up.
I thought
at least legitimate points, anyways.
Because Usyk's main attributes are an amazing gas tank and a real high volume and a lot of movement. So I thought he was going to drown him in activity and take him out later on, because he hit hard enough to put Daniel Dubois down with a jab. So I think he can hit hard enough to put Fury on the deck, even if he doesn't actually knock him out.
So the prediction is Usyk by late stoppage.
That's what it was, yeah, through drowning him in activity. Maybe like 3 or 4 knockdowns, but not actually knock him out over the course of the later rounds. Because we've seen that Fury goes down quite easily. He doesn't get knocked out easily, but he goes down easily.
He's gone down quite a few times.
He's had 7 times.
That's a lot. Yeah. That's a lot of times. That is a lot of times.
People that don't necessarily punch hard. So, I mean, certainly Nevin Pajkic and Steve Cunningham are huge punchers. So, and I also think the dysfunction in the leg contributes to like why Ngannou caught him, because that was a lot of off balance involved in that knockdown. I don't think Fury was that buzzed by it. But so that's what I thought was going to happen.
Yeah.
And so that's a potential reason that could come out as to why he didn't take the fight. Now, I think when we get to the bottom of everything, in maybe today, tomorrow, certainly it'd be difficult for 2 weeks to go by and for us to not see better proof of this cut.
Yeah.
If the cut's legitimate, then it's a postponement. And then you've only got a question whether he would actually do that to himself, which...
Zero chance he did it to himself.
Look, it's not a zero chance from Stephen Tyson.
John, if I put a polygraph on you, right now, right?
Yeah. And
you were asked, do you think he bladed himself? And you tried to say maybe, I think you'd fail it.
I don't think I would.
I'll
tell you why, right? You were this adamant to me, yeah, that the fight was going to happen on the 23rd of December. And
I was, wasn't I? I was.
Yeah, you were. And I sat there saying, look, I hope...
I don't have a very good track record with this, do I, John?
No, you don't. And I sat there and I said, I hope it happens. And I said, I'll be happy if it does happen. But I'm not going to sit here 100% telling you that I believe it. And we've had it postponed twice now.
Postponed twice.
And
right now, John?
I don't think it's going to happen because I think we're going to have problems with the IBF.
Right now?
I don't. My biggest issue, let's forget about whether he faked it or not. Because the other thing you put in is what happens next.
Yeah, I'm
I think
worried.
we've
I'm
done
worried
to
about. I'm
death.
worried about. I'm worried about this fight. I am
We've
worried
been
about this fight now.
done to death about whether it's fake or not. Because if it
Yeah,
turns out it's legit, I haven't got a problem with that.
yeah.
Like
I am
genuinely,
worried about this fight because of Tyson Fury's headspace.
I'm not worried about his headspace because I don't believe it's as bad as you think it is.
No, I don't think it. I
I
don't think
think
it's
he
as bad.
blows up.
I do
I think he
think
blows
though.
up because he's got leg injury and he's got
I
poor
do think.
dietary habits.
I do think though he reacts poorly to bad
Yeah,
circumstances.
but having bad discipline as a fighter is not really. I'm not giving him a pass for that. I
No,
don't give
I don't.
Ricky Hatton a pass for it.
I am
I
not
don't
sold
give
on the
Roberto
mental John.
Duran
I am not
a
sold
pass
on the
for it.
mental health thing either. What I am concerned about is the lack of discipline. That's the most like Usyk.
That's one of the reasons I
Some
don't like
people
him.
get mad. Like some people get mad and something bad happens to them. And you know what they do? They say, "Oh, fuck it. I'm just a victim of bad luck. No matter what I do, this shit always happens to me. I give up." I'm not
Well,
ruling that out with Fury.
I
That's a
don't.
concern. That's a
I
concern, John.
that isn't a concern for me. And I'll
Wow,
tell you what.
you're giving him credit, John. Wow,
No, I'm not
this is
giving him any
amazing.
credit. I'm
This is
not getting.
amazing.
No, I'm going to really
This is
twist the knife.
amazing.
I'm about to twist the knife in. He didn't have any problems going into the Ngannou fight. He got everything going his own way, and he still went in like a fat mess. And the reason he went in like a fat mess is because he doesn't live a fighter's lifestyle, which is one of the main reasons I don't like him.
Obviously doesn't.
So I'm not worried about it because he won't stay in shape. Every camp he has is a fat camp. If he's actually got in under 265 pounds, I'd also have concern about his punch resistance because he couldn't lose the weight in the amount of time that he's done it in a good way. So whether he comes in at 265, he takes it seriously, with all of that's legit, it doesn't matter. Like it catches
the damage is already done, is what you're saying, John?
Yeah, I
fair
think
point. That's a fair point.
I think his legs are gone, and I think his lifestyle's caught up with him. And I've thought that when I thought he was going through with the fight.
Let me ask you one.
Yeah, go on.
Well, let me ask you one question. I don't want to belabor this ankle thing, but if I remember correctly, and please help me out here, did he release that picture right away, or did it take a week or so?
No, it came out right away.
The ankle one.
Yeah.
Okay.
Because it was like the day after. I can remember it being the big news on YouTube. And people.
Because I don't doubt that the bruising was legit. What I do doubt is the timing of the bruising and how significant the injury was, and whether or not it was healed up until that point. You know what I mean? Because again, he didn't actually pull out of that fight until I believe that UCAD shit started coming out and they were putting pressure on him. So that's what I believe.
The failed test going into the Vlad fight.
He knew about it, but we didn't know about it. Because you know how UCAD doesn't release it until the investigation's complete?
No. So he knew.
So he knew that things were going on behind the scenes.
He knew.
But he didn't know that he was busted and he was going to get suspended. They were going to suspend him. They
did suspend him.
Yeah. They gave him a post-dated ban, bro.
Yeah, exactly. But he knew about it. He knew.
Oh, you're saying he knew about that like even earlier than I think he knew about it.
So he knew about that from the Christian Hagler fight.
Yeah, he knew the investigation. He knew the investigation was going on, but he didn't know what the result was going to be. He thought he could. He may have thought he could have bullshitted his way out of it, but once he realized he couldn't have, then he knew the writing was on the wall. In my opinion,
there's a lot of up and down with that.
Yeah,
like we don't know when that happened.
No, I don't know. I don't know.
We can't know.
I'm suspecting that was the case.
Going back to the point about whether he's going to stay in shape, he isn't going to stay in shape. There's no way he's going to stay in shape. And more worryingly, how were they going to stop the IBF from stripping Usyk if he doesn't fight
I don't think
Hrgovic.
that's as big as a problem as you say it is, but
Well,
I could be wrong.
I think it is, and the
I could be
reason
wrong.
I think it's a problem is because if he's genuinely cut, yeah, and it's all legit, and it's as bad as they're saying it is, he can't even start sparring for 3 months, and he's going to want a 3-month camp.
Well, here's the problem.
And so my thing with this is, there's a real chance that the IBF either order Hrgovic to fight Usyk, and they actually have the fight, yeah, or they strip Usyk. Either way, whichever one of those outcomes are, decrease the likelihood, in my opinion, of us getting an undisputed champion.
Yeah, I'm worried about that, John.
That's my concern.
This is one area where I'm in agreement with you on this. I am worried about this fight not happening because of all the moving parts. When Ali cut Foreman, not Ali, excuse me. When Foreman got cut in the fight before in Zaire with Ali, that cut required 11 stitches, and the fight was postponed and it happened 5 weeks later. Now the situation with this is this cut required 15 stitches, and I guess what's being floated out there is because this is from an existing already cut, already damaged area with scar tissue on it, that the healing time could take longer. I don't know about that. Like, if here's the thing,
Fury's camp that's put that out though. That's what's worrying.
Yeah, I don't know if it's been Fury's camp or I don't know if that's
wasn't it
that's
Fury's cut man that said
not.
it's going to take.
I don't believe
3
that's
months.
I don't believe that's the case because they haven't gotten the assessment from the doctor yet. And generally, it takes 4 to 6 weeks for those types of cuts to heal. Generally, I don't know where they're getting the 3-month thing from, but if he continues to do conditioning work, whether it be light jogging, whether it be he could probably still work out and stuff, but he just can't do contact. He could probably maybe in a week do bag work, right?
He should be able to, like, after a week or so of it being stitched up, you should better go back to the gym.
Yeah, he could still do cardio.
Because, like, in the run up to the Ali fight, if we're going to use that example, Foreman couldn't spar the entire time.
Yeah.
Which is why I think it affected his performance.
Yeah, he couldn't spar.
But he did hit the bag. He did overtraining.
Yeah, you could still, like, so the whole notion here he can't stay in shape because of this cut. I don't agree with that. The question I have is, will he? Now, he won't be able. So again, he's already done a lot of sparring, right? So here's the thing. It's going to take 4 to 6 weeks for the cut to heal. He can still do conditioning work in that interim period, right? He may require 2 more weeks of sparring. So if you take let's just say 6 weeks, right? So February to March, March to April, right? And then you do 2 weeks of sparring. You could still have this fight at the end of April or the beginning of May.
Yeah, you could. I don't think it needs 3 months.
I don't think it's 3 months.
I believe that information is coming from Fury's camp.
I think that February to March, March to April. I think at the most 2 months. So
let me ask you this then: if Fury sticks to the fact that it needs 3 months, he can't do anything for 3 months,
then Usyk should fight somebody else and just move on.
Okay, and would you be more suspicious about the cut or less suspicious?
I wouldn't be suspicious about the cut. I would be suspicious about the desire to want to fight.
Okay.
I would start questioning his desire to want to fight at that point. I'm never going to be suspicious of the cut.
That's okay.
What I will be suspicious of his desire to want to fight. Because if that's me, right? I'm trying to get this thing. Now, if he's true to his word, if you read his statement, I want to get this fight rescheduled as soon as possible. And if he is to be held true to that statement, and he follows through with that statement, then I do not believe this fight should not take place any later than May.
Well,
Now,
what?
if they start saying they want to wait till June, I have a slight problem. I have a problem with that because why should Usyk have to wait that long? I think they should take the 6 weeks, and in the interim, I think they should be doing the first week. I think he should still be doing cardio work right now, whether it be light jogging or even going on long walks, even doing light calisthenics. That should never stop, right? Then a week later, as you said, and I'm in full agreement with you, then you can start doing light bag work. Then you can start doing shadow boxing, right? Then you can start moving around the ring, shadow boxing in the ring, shadow boxing in the mirror, right? You want to do a little double end, a little speed. You want to do light heavy bag work, like I said, double end already. That's fine, right? And then once the cut is fully healed, you want to go through a 2 week camp for sparring. That's fine. You could do that. I'm not against that, right? But if this does not, if they start saying we're going to push this back, and no, I think it should happen late April, early May, and if it doesn't happen in that time frame, then I would be concerned.
Okay, because I mean these are some of the details I think we will know in the next week or so too.
Yeah,
because I have heard that it is his cut man that says he's going to have 3 months to heal from the
let's
cut.
Google that.
I could be wrong. That's what
I'm not disagreeing with you. I just want to Google.
No. Check it out. I'm fine with you googling it, and I don't think the delay should, because I mean it wasn't even 3 months from the Otto Wallin fight to the second Deontay Wilder fight, was it?
And that fight, that cut
had more than that. Was
that
like
had 30. That had 30 something stitches.
It was a lot
right?
of stitches. Yeah, it was a worse cut than the one that was in there, and there were 2 as well, weren't there? He actually got cut twice against. There were 2 cuts against Wilder. So if we look at what should be happening, the postponement should happen then. However, when does Ramadan finish?
Let me see when Ramadan is over.
Are you a Muslim?
I'm not a Muslim, no.
But you are of Lebanese heritage.
I'm Lebanese. I have,
They have Christians and everything else in Lebanon.
They have Christians in Lebanon. They do.
Yeah, no,
I was raised actually Catholic, believe it or not.
No.
Ramadan ends Tuesday, April 9th.
Okay.
Yeah.
So they could hold it in Saudi within the time.
They're gonna still hold it. How many?
So they're like actually having it in Saudi Arabia for your time frame.
Yeah. I'm trying to remember how many stitches he had.
It doesn't. I know it's more than what they've said.
Oh, it was a lot. Yeah, it was much.
And I think there were 2 cuts as well.
He had the cut with Wallin required 47 stitches.
Okay. And what's the date from the Wallin fight to the Wilder fight?
Let's see. This is a great discussion we're having right now. Great points you're bringing up with this. Okay, let's look at the Tyson Fury. So he suffered that cut that required 47 stitches, right? So the cut that required 47 stitches against Wallin, that occurred in September of 2019, right? So you got September, October, November, December, January, February. So that fight was 5 months later, right? So then you take.
And he had a 12-week training camp for that.
Yeah, so he started training 12 weeks prior, right? Or 12 weeks after
2
that.
months.
So 2 months.
2 months of healing, and then he started
September to October. So he started his training camp probably in November, right?
Yeah.
Okay. And that fight was like 5 months later. So that was with 47 stitches that cut required, right? This is 15. Yeah, I mean, so that was 4 months. What did I say? September, October, November. That was 5 months. That fight took 5 months later with the 8-week camp. right? So this is significantly less. So I think that this fight should, at the very least, be scheduled 2 months later. That's my opinion.
Well, I mean, certainly that's what they did with Ali and Foreman.
Yeah.
You've got to get past Ramadan.
Yeah. They did
You
it
know,
5 weeks. They did it within a month. They did it a month and 1 week later. Yeah. And
I
that was
mean,
that was seven.
I think that's too soon. And
I think that's too soon. I thought
think,
Foreman had a lot of bad karma and circumstances going into that fight.
yeah, there's loads.
It was a shame he never got the rematch. I mean, he retired before he could get the rematch.
That's to me a big blot on Ali's resume.
But I don't blame Ali for that, because if you look at the Foreman, did you watch the Foreman documentary?
Which one?
The one that just recently came out?
No, I haven't seen that one yet.
Foreman went to Ali's house before he retired, and he apologized to Ali because he said, "When I fought you, I wanted to kill you, and I apologize for wanting to kill you." And Ali was like disappointed that he retired, because Ali wanted the rematch, because it's gonna be another $5 million payday.
Have you read When There Were Giants by Jerry Eisenberg?
When they were what?
When the Jerry Eisenberg book on the heavyweight.
When I saw that movie, When They Were Kings.
No. So
This is
do you know who Jerry Eisenberg is?
I don't know Jerry Eisenberg, no.
Jerry Eisenberg is an old school boxing reporter. He's one of the first people to ever actually interview.
Yeah.
And he detailed some of the terms and conditions in his book. Let me get the proper title of it. That Ali put on the rematch with Foreman.
Okay.
And one of those terms and conditions that Ali put was that he was going to dictate that Foreman had to have the same trainer that trained him for the Rumble in the Jungle. That was actually in the terms and conditions of the contract.
That's crazy.
There were other unreasonable stuff in there that basically indicated Ali did not want that rematch. And Jerry Eisenberg is a pretty solid source. Let me get his
wow.
Because I mean, he is legitimately the first boxing journalist to interview Ali after he won the Rome Olympics. Once There Were Giants is the name of his book. That's it. So I don't believe that he wanted the rematch with Foreman. I also think Foreman retired partly because he couldn't get the rematch, and obviously the Jimmy Young fight meant that he wouldn't get a rematch. I mean, that just put pay to that. I think the apology has got a lot to do with his conversion to Christianity.
Yeah.
And making peace with himself. And I think I don't trust a lot of what George says. I look at what he did. He's wearing the same shorts when he beats Michael Moorer. And I think a lot of that is putting his demons to bed.
I'm a huge George Foreman fan.
I like Big George.
He's one of my favorite fighters.
But it kind of reconfirms my Sonny Liston fandom. Like, if I'm a fanboy for anybody, it's for Sonny.
Let me ask you this. I'm gonna guess you may not like this guy. Sugar Ray Leonard's my favorite fighter of all time. What do you think of him?
Yeah, you guessed right.
Yeah, because I know you don't like these. You don't like these prima donna type.
No. Ask me who the best fighter of all time was.
I'm gonna guess you're gonna say Roberto Duran, but
no, Robinson, 100%, without a shadow of a doubt.
Yeah, I don't like.
I've got Robinson as my all-time #1 greatest boxer of all time.
My problem, I don't have a problem with that, but the reason why I don't go back that far is because I don't like picking fighters that I've never like talking about and putting them in my
that's okay.
list.
But I mean, I've watched all the footage I can get.
Yeah,
it's the same with Joe Louis. I still think Joe Louis is the #1 heavyweight, and it's not.
And most of the footage of Robinson is when he was at middleweight, not at welterweight.
We haven't got the welterweight footage because it's very hard to make the case that he's the best welter of all time. But there's a high
at middleweight, he lost a lot of fights that he was favored to win. Like he lost to Carmen Basilio, he lost to Gene Fulmer, he lost to Randy Turpin. These were all fights he was big
a lot
favorites.
of them right though, didn't he?
Yeah. And then he lost to Jake LaMotta too.
But I mean, doesn't he come out on top on that series?
Yeah, he comes off. I mean, the Jake LaMotta is probably not a good example, but he did lose to him.
He
And these were
beat
guys.
his
These were
rematch with
guys that he had significant advantages over: height, reach, and
yeah, well,
speed,
you see, you say
athleticism.
that, but he always had a weight disadvantage.
Yeah, he was. If he
He
fought
was a
today,
small
fought
middleweight.
today, if he fought today, he'd probably be a junior middleweight.
Well, you have to fight at the junior middleweight limit in middleweight.
Yeah,
He never weighed like 160 pounds when he was a middleweight. I think,
very, very rarely. Yeah,
yeah, I mean,
I think.
like
How much did he weigh when he fought? When he fought for the heavyweight title?
Maxim.
Yeah, when he fought Joey Maxim, how much did
I
he
mean,
weigh
I
for that
can't.
fight?
I'd have to check.
I'm curious. I think he was
But
a
how
very.
old was he as well? I mean, he was so far past his prime.
That was so. That was so.
But a lot of it for me with Robinson is actually off the eye test of the footage that I've seen.
Yeah,
That's why I rate
that's
him
fair.
that highly.
I mean, he was a
And
great fighter.
it's the
There's no
same
doubt
with
about that.
Joe Louis. And also when you dig into it as well, how small he was, how big the guys that he devastatingly knocked out actually were.
When
Have
he
you
fought,
watched the Abe Simon fights?
yeah.
Have you watched those fights?
Which one? Which
The
ones were they?
Abe Simon Joe Louis fight.
No, I
So
haven't
Abe
seen those.
Simon was 6'4", 250 to 260 pounds because he fought him twice. Joe Louis coming in at around 200 pounds, maybe even
Joe
a bit
Louis
less.
would have been a cruiserweight today. He was so light.
No, I don't mean like he's fought at heavyweight at 180 pounds. Like in
Yeah,
those days, anything over 175 was a heavyweight. He puts down Abe Simon multiple times.
you know what was amazing to like
And it's
when
based off technique though, and the way that he sets his shots up. It isn't just because he's not the physically strongest man in the ring.
yeah, you know
He's
what was
given up so
amazing.
much size and everything else.
You know what was amazing when Rocky Marciano knocked out Joe Louis. He was, you could see like he was upset, like he was upset about it, like he wasn't
I'm
happy
still
about doing
upset
it.
about it. I don't even like bringing that up.
Yeah, you could see like that he was like he felt bad about it because he
If
really
I, if
loved.
I actually fanboy for anyone, it's Liston. To be honest.
Oh, you like Liston?
To the extent that
You know what
I
happened with
actually
Liston?
think that Liston was put in prison falsely to avoid the tournament after Marciano retired.
Yeah, he weighed 159 pounds for a light heavyweight bout.
Yeah,
Isn't that amazing? Isn't
but
that
they didn't
amazing?
do all of that stuff with, like that they do now, and I don't like. Anyway,
But I feel
so
bad. I feel bad for Sonny Liston because he was frozen out for a long period of time in his career before he like got his title shot. It took him
well,
forever to get his title shot.
he was put in prison again, fairly spurious charges, and like the sentence doesn't add up to the charges for assault.
Yeah,
So for 18 months, at the same time that they denounced that, because what was it? What were they called now? International Boxing Club. Is that who got done for all the mafioso stuff?
yeah.
I can't remember the name of the guy who ran it. Anyway, they denounced the competition that they were staging to define a new heavyweight champion after Marciano retired. Liston was put into prison at that same time, but the guys who ran it, who were running the competition, were Liston's promoters. There was
Okay.
supposed to be 6 fighters, and only 5 of them went into it, and it ended up not actually being a true competition.
Yeah.
2 of the fighters had a stinker, and then it just ended up being what's the light heavyweight called? The old light heavyweight, Archie Moore. Archie Moore just ended up fighting Patterson for the title in the end. They didn't actually have a true tournament.
Yeah.
So the winners from the other bouts didn't get put into it, and instead of having 6 people, they had 5. And it was supposed to be a knockout tournament. At the same time, Liston was in prison. Now, I'm sorry, but Liston wins that tournament if you look at who's in it. It's like Lightning Jackson and
then he had like the shortest heavyweight reign, I think. One of the shortest.
Well, really, if you think about it, like he was #1 contender throughout Patterson's reign and never fought him. and beat
Yeah.
all the other contenders while Patterson's fighting Johansson.
Yeah.
To be honest, the only heavyweight I think has been more protected than Patterson is Wilder. But anyway, that's a different conversation.
Who's been protected besides Patterson? Who else?
Wilder, I think, is actually
Yeah.
the only one who's been more protected. But that's a
I
whole
think they knew Patterson had some issues.
They knew he couldn't. He was a light heavyweight. He shouldn't have been fighting at heavyweight anyway.
He weighed 100. He weighed 189 pounds for the first fight.
Every single fight he went into, he could have made the light heavyweight limit if he'd have needed to.
Yeah, he was light, but he was tall. He was tall too.
Yeah, but right, okay, because that's one of the arguments when people try and make against Sugar Ray Robinson, that he would have been too small to fight the middleweights of late at times. But from a length point of view, he wasn't.
No, he was tall. He was, what was he, like 6
He's
feet?
taller than that.
5'11", I think he was.
5'11", 6 feet. He got well over a 70-inch reach. I don't think he got Hagler levels of reach, but he got a good reach. So I can see Robinson beating Hagler. I can see him beating Hearns, and I can see him beating Leonard. Whether he would have done, I don't know, but I can see how it could happen.
Yeah.
And like they're not all so big that he wouldn't be able to live with them. And at welterweight, if he'd have fought against the Four Kings at welter, I could see him coming out on top of that. Quite quickly.
It's crazy.
Right. So the point is, I still don't think that this fight between Usyk and Fury is going to happen. And I'm very,
yeah.
No, unless it happens in April and May, I think the IBF's going to get in the way. If Fury comes out in the next 10 days saying that he needs 3 months to recover and he's not going to fight,
I think what this all boils down to, and it all hinges on, is when can this fight be rescheduled?
Well, it can be rescheduled for the end of April, beginning of May, because Ramadan's not on. And the injury, that's enough time for him to heal.
Yeah, it's 15 stitches. I know it's deep. The thing is it's deep, but it's not long. So that's the good thing. That 47 stitch cut, that thing was like fucking across his whole fucking
that fight should have been stopped.
Oh, I would have stopped that fight. I would have stopped
it 100% should have been stopped. And that would have made it a last.
What's up, Drew?
Nothing much. Just woke up. Trying to begin my day. So I'll be honest with you. I think a lot of the people on here, like, content creators and everything, like the ones that really get on, like people like the LDBC, are doing stuff like the LDBC does, like creating Cutgate and everything, but that's just my opinion on it. But if this fight was to ever get rescheduled, it'll probably be in May or June after Ramadan. It will probably be the most likely scenario. But we may get Usyk versus Horgachev in an IBF mandatory fight. I think the IBF is going to order that fight now, since the fight's being postponed. And I would say something, if Fury doesn't reschedule this fight. I will get on Fury for not rescheduling this fight. But at the end of the day, we got to look at it like this. He got cut. The video shows that the guy fought through an elbow at him. Cuts happen in sparring. Like, people are saying, because of Fury's track record of pulling out of big fights and everything, I don't know. It's like people are not trying to be from an unbiased opinion and everything, because a lot of people hate Tyson Fury, so they're gonna use their hate to throw comments to the fighter and everything. Like, what are you guys expecting to do? Go in there and fight Usyk with a cut not even healed yet and everything? If he gets cut there, the fight could be stopped. Then we have excuses and everything. think we've ever have a fight where both fighters are good and the best man win, no excuses.
Yeah, I think that's fair, but I just have a hard time getting past this whole thing. People are saying that he cut himself on purpose. I know John says that people have a right to be suspicious, but I don't know, man. Something like putting a razor to your eye is, and you're gonna cut the same area that you've already had issues with in the past. And there's so many nerves around that area. Like you would have to have like a surgeon, someone who has surgical skills, be able to do that. And even then, like I don't know. It's just too much for me to kind of like wrap my head around and try to get behind. I just don't think that happens. I just don't think that happened. And I don't think that he didn't want the fight. I mean, I believe he was highly motivated for the fight. It looked like he was preparing very well for the fight. He looked like he was in the best shape he's been in recent years. So I don't know. I just have my opinion on it. But as John said, people are going to be skeptical of him because of his past. But I think it's more about the emotion. I don't think it's more about the past because fighters, if they like a certain guy, they'll find reasons to justify behavior. If they don't like a certain guy, they'll go out of their way to maybe blow out of proportion certain things. And again, I'm not trying to defend the guy, but he did pull out of 2 fights that he officially signed for. And the last one was 9 years ago. And if we have to go back 9 years and try to connect the dots to this.
But no, we don't have to connect the dots. He did actually lie about why he was initially postponing that fight. We've agreed on that.
Yeah, I do believe that the mental health thing was
No. When he initially postponed the fight, he said he
when he postponed it, yeah.
Yeah. So he hasn't cancelled this.
But we're not talking. But I'm talking about.
But BB hasn't actually cancelled. He hasn't actually pulled out yet, has he?
He hasn't pulled out of this one yet.
No.
So he can't say he pulled out of this one.
And so the only thing I'm saying is, I don't think it's unfair for people to be suspicious about him at this point in the juncture.
Yeah, I mean, I'm just trying to. But you have to explain your suspicions. That's the thing. I just have. For me,
how about this? Right, you said you thought that could be an old photo of his bruised calf.
Oh, for his ankle.
Yeah, and actually that healed up.
Yeah.
Now, I don't know how sustainable it would be to try that lie, but what if it's an old photo of the cut?
Well, I already explained why I think it can't be an old photo of the cut because he just did an interview with Adi Adedipo on DAZN recently.
No, not from this training camp. From the cut he's had before.
Well, he's going to get stitches, John, and it's going to...
Look.
That's the problem.
Lying,
like the ankle thing, you could argue. The ankle thing, you could argue because your ankle's covered. You can't. You can't cover your face.
But if he's lying, right, it's going to be very difficult for him to sustain it. He's going to have to get out of Saudi, get back to the UK, get some Occam, and have no reporters take a picture of his eye for it to be a sustainable lie. Because I haven't said he is lying. I just get why people are suspicious because of his track record. So for that to happen, it's going to be a bit difficult. And I think that argument will be gone soon.
So what are people going to say when they see him walking around with stitches in his eye?
Well, they'll have to admit that he's probably is genuine. And then they're either going to say he bladed himself or he didn't. I mean, that's what will happen. But where we are now, for people to be suspicious.
Then the argument's going to be he bladed himself. And
it will be. And I'm not going to sit here and defend the blading argument, but but I do think people may have bladed themselves in the past. Certainly in other sports, they have.
In that area, though, John,
I wouldn't do it. I don't know.
When
I
you
mean,
look at people who have bladed themselves, it's usually in the forehead or the
I know where
the
to do it, and
or
I know
the
why.
brow
And I
area. So
understand the counter argument as to why you wouldn't pick that.
yeah, that's all.
However, I have heard somebody who I consider to be relatively pro Fury. He's definitely quite anti AJ, or at least he gets flack for it in Hatman. Going back to the accusations about David Hay blading himself from Tyson Fury.
Does Hatman like Fury, or because I always see him talking shit about Fury?
I don't really necessarily know where he sits. I actually think he likes Wilder the most. Maybe he's not biased. Maybe he isn't biased. He gets a lot of grief for being anti-AJ. I know he gets that.
I heard Hatman unload on Wilder about being a country bumpkin and all, like accusing him of all this crazy shit. I always thought Hatman liked AJ up until recently, until he Hatman turned on AJ after Hatman turned on AJ once AJ lost to Ruiz and Usyk. I felt.
I don't know that he's turned on anyone.
I don't think he's anti-AJ.
He goes on long diatribes about AJ's mental state. He put out one recently that Ben Davidson was a double agent to make AJ lose. I don't know that he's pro or anti anybody. He gets flack.
What's
his
position?
Being anti-AJ. That's what he.
What's his position on this Fury situation?
So the point is, right? He said at the time, he didn't believe that David Hay bladed himself. He thought that was, at the time of the postponement, he thought it was nonsense. He's now questioning that when he looks back on it, because Tyson Fury is so dishonest that it's raising these questions. And that's really what I'm trying to say. I don't think it's unreasonable for people to doubt a habitual liar. And most of the people that are doubting him are doubting him because they're British fans that have followed his career the entire time, and we remember all the other shenanigans that he's done. And we're dubious the day after we get the announcement.
Yeah,
all will become clear.
Okay, I mean, as more information comes out, which I believe, because here's what happened before the picture of the cut came out, and before the video came out, people were saying, "Oh, he wasn't wearing headgear." That was debunked. Oh, the cut's not real. That was debunked. Oh, he didn't get hit in that area. People still question that. I think there's evidence to suggest that he did. Oh, there's no video footage of it. That, you know what I'm saying? So, like, again, the layers and the layers. Now, oh, it's photoshopped. Okay, but then he's gonna, and then even in the picture where he put on Instagram. Oh, that's an old picture from 2018. Yeah, but he had an iPhone 15 in his hand when he took it in the mirror. They didn't have iPhone 15s out. Like everything that's being thrown as an accusation is being somewhat debunked, in my opinion. So if this keeps going on, this series of events and keeps going on where everything keeps being debunked,
the truth will come out.
Yeah, once all the layers are peeled back,
end up with it just being a blading incident.
Yeah, once all the layers are peeled back,
but
and here's another thing:
people won't completely rule. Some people will not rule out the possibility.
Well, it's like this. It's like the Bladegate situation, like Drew was saying before. Like these.
I don't see the same parallel with that. To be honest.
Oh, I do. I 100% do.
Well,
think about this. Think about this. Okay. People called Fury a cheater because he tested positive for nandrolone, which he did, and that's why he loaded his gloves. So because Fury potentially, and I suspect that maybe that ankle injury was an older pitcher, and it wasn't as bad as he was making it out to be, and he was still able to fight because he faked that injury, right? There's an argument for that with the ankle, or at least overblown the significance of it or the level of it, right? Now, because he did that he would take a razor to the same area that's been cut before legitimately in a fight and cut it with a razor. I can't put those two things together. I think they're apples and oranges. Just like the nandrolone and the loading of the gloves are apples and oranges. For me, maybe having an ankle, maybe posting an old ankle injury and then saying it happened recently, and you didn't actually pull out of that fight, you postponed it, right? But because you lied about that, does that mean you would take a razor and open up an old injury that you sustained in a prior fight? I can't put that together in my mind. And again,
Well,
I don't know.
I'm not saying that he has bladed himself.
Yeah.
I'm saying
I think those are two
I'm
separate
saying
things.
that they're not as different. So taking nandrolone has got no relation to
loading your gloves.
They're not
And
even
faking an
close.
ankle injury to me
but
has no.
Faking an injury to postpone a fight, he's done once before.
Okay.
So
faking an injury.
As much.
Hear me out, though.
Not as much disparity as the two examples you're giving there.
Faking an injury is much different than inflicting an injury on yourself. You're not accusing him of faking an injury here. You're
not accusing him.
Not you. I didn't mean to say you, but people are comparing him faking an injury to actually inflicting an injury to himself on a prior injured area. Those are two different things, John. You're saying he faked. People are saying he faked it. This is again the apples and orange argument. You're saying he faked an injury, or at least misled people on the timing of it, which I believe. I don't think that bruising was fake. I don't think he took makeup and putting on his legs. I would argue that maybe that occurred earlier in the camp.
Did think that, and I wouldn't rule that out. Also, let's go back to the other analogy. The reason I don't think jumping from nandrolone, you're saying this is apples and oranges. Right? Yeah. Taking nandrolone and loading your gloves, to me, is like apples and beef steak. They're not even the same food group. They're so different that it's not relevant. Also,
well, this is like a hamburger to cheeseburger.
Yeah, this is maybe it is apples and oranges, but there's closer similarities.
Well, this is oranges and tangerines.
I don't know if it's I don't even know if it's that. I think
this is apples. This is apples and pears.
I'm happy with like apples and oranges. Yeah, but nandrolone to loading your gloves, particularly, they didn't even say that he'd done like what Margarito did. Like that would be more plausible. But to actually put egg weights in your gloves, or take all the padding out, or all these other things, which wouldn't necessarily give you the advantage. Why wouldn't you just do what Margarito was going to do? Like, if you're gonna do glove tampering, you're gonna do it with the wraps. You're gonna do illegal hand wraps. That's the only way anybody ever does it, for starters.
That's true.
And they didn't even accuse him of that. So that's why I just didn't take it seriously. It's like what he was actually being accused of was so preposterous that it doesn't actually, like even taking the padding out of your gloves. Well, why? Boxers wear gloves to protect their hands from being broken. They don't wear gloves to protect the opponent's face. That's why gloves were introduced.
I agree
that. Taking the padding out of your gloves would hurt your hands. Why wouldn't you just do what Margarita did and tamper with it, do illegal hand wraps? Yeah. If you're going to do anything, that's what you'd do. So that's why I just didn't take it seriously. It's such a silly argument that there's no point even entering into the discussion because there's no benefit. Like, why didn't you just accuse him of having loaded gloves like Margarito? That would have made sense.
But
even if it was bullshit, it would have actually made some sort of sense. So that's why it's so different jumping from nandrolone to having egg white.
Now, if we seen photos of Fury looking fat and out of shape, right? He looked significant. He looked at least 12 to 13 pounds lighter for this fight than he did against Ngannou and he did against Wilder the third time, right? That's number one. And then you're looking at the cut. It's in the same location that the Wallen cut was. And then you're looking at the like how close it is to the eye itself. Like it's just so, it would be such a stretch to say that he had someone take a blade and cut him like that. I just, and here's the thing, because how deep that cut was, if you look at the picture and you see how deep it was, some of like that does not even look like a razor blade type injury. That looks like a puncture where the elbow actually went and punctured, like almost like a puncturing type motion to that area, right? It wasn't like a slash. That was deep. So in order for that to be to come from a razor and be that deep, someone would have to go like the extent that they would have to go to cause that severity, right? It's very, very hard for me to wrap my head around that, John. I'm just being honest with you.
Look, what I've said to you is, I think people are reasonable to have their suspicion. And I also think it's reasonable to believe the surface level thing that we've been given, that it's just a cut in sparring, then he's postponing the fight. Yeah. I haven't ridiculed people for thinking that.
Yeah,
I haven't said there's no basis for that whatsoever. Yeah. I haven't, because of his track record, because we don't have other people pulling out of fights that are signed, and he's done it twice before, and he hasn't done it yet with this. Yeah, I understand why people are skeptical. And the other thing is, what about this as an argument for the blading then? And I'm not saying this is true, but I can see how you could come to this conclusion. You do blade your eye, so you have stitches there. But the photo you release is an old photo of the previous injury to make it look bad, photoshopped, so that the stitches you have weren't really that serious, but it's enough for you to be walking around with stitches to justify the fight being pulled out. No, you're ignoring all the room. No, look, that's a stretch as well. That's not cast iron. I would not die on my hill for that argument. Yeah, I am not here to tell you that's what happened. Yeah, I'm not taking anything that's come out of their camp at this point as gospel truth. I think it's too soon. And I think we will find the truth out. And maybe the truth is as simple as you think, that he's cut himself in sparring. It's all bad luck, and that's what happened. Yeah, I'm all right with that idea. Yeah. But you can't say, oh, he's definitely in shape. All the rumours about him getting turned over in sparring, they're real. Looking good aesthetically.
No, I understand. I'm saying
real.
I
themselves are real.
Correct. He physically.
The other thing is,
he looking physically
looking good aesthetically.
Correct.
Could be a sign that he's had a very hard fat camp. Yeah. Correct. And that actually, whilst he might look good, he's lost the weight in the wrong way.
Okay.
Like we see time and time again, boxers making weight, looking good on the scales, and then they get knocked out because
but my argument is he took the fight serious enough to try to get in the best shape possible. That's my argument. Whether or not he was or not would have to be revealed on the night of the fight.
But then
I'm arguing his motivation and
let's say that he did take it seriously. He's had a fat camp that's resulted in him getting knocked out in sparring consistently, knowing that he's done the weight the wrong way. His punch resistance is shot. He hasn't got the legs under him to get out of the way. And that all these small cruiserweights are having the way with him and knocking him out.
Yeah.
Because one of the other things Hatman's
Here's my point, John. Here's my point, John. If he never wanted the fight in the first place and he was trying to get out of it, why would he go through the trouble of getting in the best physical shape?
No, but I haven't said that either.
But this is what other people. These other people are saying that
people who may think that he's pulling out of the fight now at this late date in the juncture because he knows that he's going to get.
Can I ask you a question, point blank, John?
Yeah, go on.
Do you think he wants this fight, and do you think he wanted to go through with this fight on February 17th?
I can't answer that either way because I didn't think we'd get this close. I didn't think I didn't believe the 23rd December date.
So your answer is you don't know.
My answer is I don't know.
All right, that's fair. I'll accept that.
Because
I have no choice but to accept it. But I believe you. But I believe you. I believe you.
Like, I was of the mindset that I was really looking forward to this fight, and I thought it was going to happen. So the polls I'm talking about that people put out there to say, "Do you think this fight is going to happen?" I actually voted yes.
Yeah, you're right. You voted that. You voted that it would happen.
No, I voted yes, it would happen.
Okay.
So I thought it was going to happen. I was really caught off guard yesterday when I saw the news.
Drew, has your opinion changed about if this fight's going to happen now, even with the postponement? Because my concern is Tyson Fury staying motivated, Tyson Fury staying disciplined, and now Tyson Fury getting probably pissed off with the situation and taking the approach that fuck this, I'm unlucky. I don't give a fuck anymore. I'm just going to retire. I did everything I could, and this happens to me. I don't want this anymore. Is there a chance of that even happening? Like, because of the circumstances surrounding this, that he's saying to himself, I worked so hard, all for nothing. Is it really worth it for me to keep going on with this? Maybe I'm cursed. Like, what is your position on that, at least?
I look at it like this. Like, I feel like people were waiting for something like this to happen. And during this whole date, this yesterday and everything, people that are like well respected and everything has really made themselves look like asses with their comments and everything, trying to do what other groups do. Makes you know better than them because you're doing the same stuff. Like, oh, he cut himself. Oh, he did that Cookgate and everything. Like, it's a disgrace how people can comment on one thing that one group does and hate on what they do, but you do the same stuff as them. Like, I don't get it. I understand people hate Tyson Fury and everything, but I look at it like this. There are a lot of people like that do what we do, Joe, that hate Tyson Fury and they cannot cannot say anything from an unbiased point of view when it comes to Tyson Fury and everything. And I looked at it. I would ask half of those people, who did you have in this fight before this happened? I bet you all of them would have said Usyk, just because they hate Tyson Fury so much. But when it comes to this, I looked at the photos, I looked at the video footage and everything. This happens. It happens. It's an accident. And I think people are talking about, oh, this guy pulls out a big fight. The last fight he put out was 9 years ago. Like, so every time somebody pulls out a fight, we're gonna get on them, like, and everything. But if it happens like an injury or something, like a physical injury, this is a physical injury. He can't fight with a cut, and I think what you want him to do, fight with a cut.
And let me ask you guys. I apologize for interrupting, but let me ask you guys this. And I'm not trying to, again, I'm not trying to make excuses or anything. What type of outrage did people really have because he didn't fight Ustinov, who was a late replacement? Like was that, like, I can understand people getting mad about the Klitschko fight, but like was everyone really disappointed that the fight between Fury and Ustinov didn't happen? Was that such a big deal that Fury didn't fight Ustinov, who was a late replacement? I could see the argument about Klitschko. That I was pissed off that fight didn't happen. I was very disappointed in Fury for not fighting fucking Klitschko, but I didn't really care that he didn't fight Ustinov. I just didn't have this. See, like, people are just trying to take little things and make them bigger than they are because I believe because of the dislike of Fury. John, did it really bother you that he didn't fight Ustinov?
No.
You know what I mean?
I don't think people looked at it like that when he did that.
Like, they're using it as an excuse now.
No, hold on a minute, Joe.
They're making that's another comparison.
It's not fair.
But they're using that as a comparison and putting in
Well,
and again, they're putting it in the same boat. They're
I
putting it
don't
in the same
agree
boat
with
as the
what you're
Klitschko
saying.
fight. Like the Klitschko fight, he had a rematch clause, and it was a title fight. I understand the outrage for that,
Right.
but what's the outrage
So
for this Ustinov? Oh, well,
The
he's got
outrage isn't about the Ustinov fight in itself. Like, people put out videos in the run up to when they thought he would sign to fight Joshua that he'd pull out, even though it hadn't been signed. Yeah. Because of the track record that he had. So when he was scheduled to fight Ustinov, certainly in the UK, I'd be shocked how many people in America actually followed that at the time. In the UK, Tyson wasn't highly rated. Like, there was very low buzz about him fighting Vlad in the first fight because nobody thought he'd win.
yeah.
So, and then the way that he won didn't really create any post-fight buzz because it was such a stinker. I mean, I followed it all because I like boxing, but a lot of people who didn't like boxing didn't really rate Fury anyway, didn't think he'd beat Vlad, and the general public just didn't care. So even when he pulled out of the second fight in the UK, it was only boxing hardcores who actually cared. Like, the fight wasn't selling. It was going totally under the radar, and there was low levels of interest in the rematch, generally speaking. Tickets were not selling. And one of the reasons people thought he pulled out was because of low ticket sales. That was put forward as a reason at the time. Like, they thought it was just going to be postponed because they weren't selling the tickets. So he pulls an injury and then they'd reschedule it. A lot of people thought that when he initially put out that ankle injury. Not many people put out there that he was pulling out of it because he got a nandrolone drug test against him. One of the reasons why I think when he initially postponed it, we didn't know.
Yeah.
A lot of people thought it was low ticket sales.
And this whole thing with Pulev, I don't remember that fight ever being signed.
I can't remember either.
I don't.
He was
remember that fight.
mandated to fight him, and he didn't go through on it, and it got close.
Is that the one when he got stripped of the IBF title because he was supposed to fight Pulev for it? Was that the situation?
No.
Who was that? Who was supposed to be his
It's
IBF?
for the it's for the ECB.
Say again.
So it was for the European title, and he was the man. I can't remember who was holding it. I'd have to go right into it. The first duck is where he dropped the bloody British title to get out of fighting Bryce.
Yeah, that people didn't like that.
I didn't like it at the time. I was really peed off about it. And then he popped up in Ireland and became the Irish heavyweight champion. And then he's come back to the UK, race baiting, telling us what a British guy he is and that he's the only true British fighter here, after dropping the British title and going to Ireland and telling us all that he's always been Irish. So I'm sure there's a huge element of the fact that people don't like him because of the things that he's done. And he tells all sorts of other lies. And I think when he fought Wilder for the first time, that was the first time he'd ever defended a title of any form. So the third Wilder fight, in all of the titles that he's held, was his first title defense.
Yeah.
And this is why, look, I think, like, a lot of people who don't normally question Tyson Fury are getting at their wits' end with him. Like, G-Man Boxing, I find quite pro Fury. He doesn't think he is. And maybe he's not. Maybe because I don't like Fury and he says too many positive things about him. I find that. He's suspicious. He's suspicious. And he was picking Fury to beat Usyk.
Okay.
And, like, I think a lot of it probably is emotional. But I think they're justified in being emotional and being suspicious, and maybe it'll all come out in the wash that it's just a legitimate cut.
Yeah. But they're going to be people that no matter what evidence gets put forth, they're just going to say they don't believe it. You know?
Yeah, they are. But they're going to be extreme people that hate him. So there's people out there who are undermining the veracity of the statements at the moment, who, when they are shown conclusive evidence one way or the other, will say, yeah, fair enough.
Yeah.
And those people who've got reasonable doubts now are not being unreasonable.
Yeah.
I mean, that's it. I mean, it's like, okay, let's take a totally different incident. Right. I was on Rafi's platform. Dillian White had just fought Oscar Rivas. We found out about the adverse finding. You came on there, said we were defending Dillian White. When it all came out, we didn't say we were defending Dillian White. We said to you, we're not convinced about this test, and we don't think that he would have taken Dianabol. So we want to know what happens with it before we make a decision. Yeah, this is more like that. I want to know what's happening, but I'm not here to say 100%, yeah, he's got a real cut, because it's Tyson Fury. And I think it's fair.
Yeah. Well, a lot of people do have your position, John. I mean, it's not a minority.
I've never seen anything like this on a fight postponement on YouTube at the moment. Like some of the people that I don't think are anti Tyson Fury have got a bit upset with it, even when they think it's probably real.
Well, I'm upset about it. I'm upset about it. I'm upset it happened. I'm pissed off.
I think everyone's pissed off. I mean, I thought he was going to lose, so I was really looking forward to the fight.
Yeah, and if the fight, I'll stand on this. If the fight does not happen by May, I'll be disappointed. I'll stop being skeptical of Fury's desire to want the fight. I will definitely say that. You know,
I mean, I don't think he wants to fight. And I'll tell you, the main reason I don't think he wants to fight is because he was offered the money by Saudi to do it when we had all the negotiations at the beginning of last year. And all that ended up happening was he had one fight against Ngannou last year. I think Tyson Fury knows he's shot and he doesn't want to take on any challenges anymore. And he's been getting away with it since the third Wilder fight. I mean, that's my opinion.
Do you think he fights somebody else instead of Usyk?
I think he's going to wait for Usyk to get the Hrgovic fight mandated so that he can.
So you don't think this fight will even be scheduled again? You think that?
I mean, I could definitely be wrong. Like this week, we might find that there's a date in the end of April, beginning of May, fights postponed, put on there, and it all happens. And I hope that that's the case. But it really wouldn't surprise me if he just sits on his hands, says he's got to be out of the ring for 3 months, and waits for that IBF Mando to get ordered.
Yeah. Well, I think we covered it all, John.
Yeah, no, we've done everything there. Thanks for having me on, Joe. Thanks for coming on as well.
All right.
Because I wasn't. Yeah. Thanks a lot.
All right, man. I'll catch up with you, man. Have a good day.
See you later.
All right, guys. Pretty much covered it all. You know, I'm going to get ready for Dan Aziz versus Joshua Buatsi. And we're going to get ready for Conor Benn later today. So at least we do have some boxing this weekend. But this is a horrible blow. Totally disappointed in this. And I'm interested to see what happens in the next coming weeks with this situation, because this is fucking horrible, man. All right, guys. Beeb is out. Talk to y'all soon. Make sure you check out the Ringside Reporter podcast tomorrow, and we will be back tomorrow. Have a great one. Take care.